Yes. So good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Today we are here to speak about the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. This is a little bit of a longer webinar. Probably going to be spending a good 2 to 3 hours together. Please, if you have got any type of questions, then use the chat box or the Q&A box. And at the end, I'm going to come back onto it, and then I'm going to answer as many questions as I can. As I said at the beginning of the, we're not going to be looking at personal charts. Unfortunately, you know, the material is big enough. We're not going to have time for that. But I'm going to give you as much information as possible to make sure that you can interpret this in your own chart as well. Now, some people might find it a little bit longer. You know, if you do so, then feel free to skip. If someone would be nice to kind of do a timestamp, for instance, if you would like to, that would be lovely. But some people just like listening to their own bits and bobs. But personally, I kind of don't do that, because I think listening to the first part of the lecture is just as important as listening to your own house position and planetary positions. The reason being is because sometimes you just have to place the info into that certain house, and you can have a great understanding of what you should be expecting happening to you. Okay, so just a little bit of an announcement, because it's Neptune, Jupiter, it's the most spiritual. It cannot get more spiritual than that. So I've decided to offer a Easter discount on all my webinars, on personal readings. So if that's something you are interested in, then you will be able to find the discount code on the slide. So you can go and book whatever you need. So Neptune and Jupiter, let me just put it out there. I'm one of those astrologers who is not the most, I'm not the most keen on this conjunction, okay? Typically, Neptune and Jupiter is something which looks extremely nice, but it could go extremely wrong as well, okay? And we need to be very, very careful with this. Now, the reason why I wanted to start with this picture, because on a personal level, one thing you're going to have to remember with this Neptune Jupiter is that you can see that we've got someone who is drowning. And the question is going to be that, are you going to be the one who is actually drowning? Or are you going to be the one who is going to kind of become a spiritual warrior? This is probably the biggest message. Neptune and Jupiter is about claiming your spiritual power. It's kind of making sure that you align with your path. But one thing which I really, really, really want you to understand is that Jupiter is about claiming something, and Neptune is about releasing something in your life. So if you are not ready to make any type of sacrifices, if you are not ready to let go of fears, if you are not working on your confidence level, this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction is not going to become once in a lifetime opportunity for you. Even though if it doesn't trigger kind of anything in your chart, it's going to be falling into a house. And we're talking about a 13-year cycle. So this is something which is impacting you. Of course, if something happens in the world, you know, it's going to impact you. So are you going to be ready for it or not? This combination could talk about whether you are a dreamer or an achiever. And it's very much about kind of shooting for the stars. It's asking you to believe in yourself. It wants you to have your faith. It wants you to be kind of having a positive mindset and letting go of all your fears, what is not needed anymore in your life. So that's going to be one of the biggest message of the Neptune Jupiter. So you can see that we've got someone here with their hand out of the water. So it's kind of indicating to us that they are drowning. Okay, and of course, it's kind of like an SOS sign there. Come and kind of save me. And that's the Neptunian part. But if I have a belief that I can be the winner, I can be a god, a goddess, and that's the Jupiterian part, then I can become the spiritual warrior. And maybe I can make a spiritual business, or I can do, you know, whatever I have been dreaming of since I was a child or last year or whenever it kind of happened. So I would like you to make some intentions today, because one thing which we might want to remember in regards to a conjunction, this is a beginning of a cycle. I've read Facebook posts recently that, oh, it's Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. I don't feel anything. I don't think it's such a big deal. It is a big deal, and I'm going to prove to you today why. But one thing is that the fact that the conjunction happens today, do not expect that it's going to be happening, something is going to be happening today, or not even in the next 6 weeks. It might only be happening when Jupiter and Neptune are actually going to be forming a certain type of aspects. In 3 years' time, Jupiter is going to be squaring Neptune. In a couple of years' time, Jupiter is actually going to be sextiling Neptune. And that's going to be happening from the sign of Taurus, which is about building something, which is a little bit about foundation and crystallization. So most probably, we're going to see this conjunction playing out in a couple of years' time. So not today. Some of you might be experiencing, you know, you're going to see some type of signs happening with you and to you in the next 6 weeks, especially till the 10th of May, 2022. So I would like you to listen to these signs, because Neptune is actually all about divination. It's all about signs. So something is going to pop up in your life, but maybe not in a physical way. Maybe it's going to be a dream. Maybe it's going to be Victor just giving you one sentence which really hits the nail, and then, you know, your brain is going to kind of spin around it. So the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction is the beginning of a cycle. A conjunction actually indicates that we have to merge the two planetary energies if we want to kind of create something. It's kind of like becoming a new planet overall. And as I mentioned, Jupiter is your faith. Neptune is about letting go of certain type of behaviors, what's not serving us anymore. And then when we put those together, yes, a miracle can be born. What's also interesting is that Jupiter takes about 12 years to make a zodiacal circle. Neptune is about 165 years. So they tend to be meeting up every 12.7 years, so which is about 13 years. And this time around, the Neptune-Jupiter is going to be happening 12th of April, which is today, on 23°59' of Pisces. So I would like you to have a look at your chart. If you have got any type of planets around 23, 24 degree, basically between 21 to 25 degree of any of the mutable signs, especially, or something to do with your angles. If you don't know what the mutable signs are, then it's going to be Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Okay, these are going to be the most important ones. Now, but in order for us to understand what Neptune and Jupiter might mean, we're going to have to go back and then have a look at a little bit of the journey of Jupiter and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, because Neptune has been here since 2011. So it's been a long time. But what happened is that Jupiter actually kind of moved into the sign of Pisces last year. And then it kind of gave us a little bit of a taste of what to expect. They did not form a conjunction, because what was going on is that Jupiter went in, and then on 2 degrees, actually it went retrograde. So the entry into the sign of Pisces happened on the 14th of May. So you should have seen something already, a little bit of a sign of what to expect in the next 13 years. But then what happened was Jupiter went retrograde on the 20th of June, from 2 degrees of Pisces, and then it went back to 22 degrees of Aquarius. Then it went into the sign of Aquarius actually on the 28th of July. And then again, it went into the sign of Pisces on 29th of December 2021. So something which could have happened, or at least a sign which was going on sometimes between 14th of May till about 28th of July. If you feel that nothing really happened, then you might want to be looking at, okay, what was going on since 29th of December? And you should have received some type of signs, basically. We're going to be talking about what other aspects Jupiter and Neptune will be making. That's going to be important, but we're going to come back on to that. So now, one of the questions which I want to kind of talk about straight away, because some of you Piscean people probably wondering which planet rules Pisces. And I would say that you should be looking at both of them. Jupiter and Neptune. I tend to be looking at Neptune as the co-ruler of Pisces, and then Jupiter is the main ruler. But for instance, in evolutionary astrology, they say that Jupiter is more about the event-related planet, which brings events, and Neptune would be more a psychological planet. And that's how they differentiate the two planetary energies from a rulership point of view. So whichever you choose, you know, I tend to be looking at Jupiter as the ruler of Pisces and Neptune as a secondary ruler. But one of the reasons why I do that is because Neptune is it has got such a long cycle. It has got a 165-year cycle, which kind of indicates to us that we are unable to integrate that into our life. Okay, because we're not going to experience that Neptune goes through every single sign. And no way that you are not going to be experiencing Piscean themes in your life. You will, okay? And Jupiter only takes about 12 years to go around. So every 12 years, somehow we are faced to overcome Piscean challenges, or actually to experience the blessing of Pisces overall. Okay, so I just wanted to put it out there. Next thing which we might want to mention is that any type of conjunction between, let's say, a social planet and then an outer planet is definitely affecting the society significantly. And the society planets are Jupiter and Saturn, which kind of indicates that something which might be happening in the world, and then we are participating in those. And the outer planet, something to do with generational shifts. So let's say, for instance, in the 70s, just give you a silly example, I'm not too sure if it's true, but let's say in the 70s, that was the hippie era, and everyone loved rock and roll, for instance. Okay, so Neptune kind of brings in element of changes in the society, and maybe it indicates that how the music taste is going to be actually changing, and so forth. So I hope that kind of makes sense to you. Now, Jupiter has been in the sign of Pisces a few times probably in your life. So the very last time Jupiter went there was in 2010, 18th of January, and it was there till 2011, January 22nd. There was a little bit of a time when actually it was already in the sign of Aries, but overall that was the 1 year period when it spent time in Pisces. And then you can see in 1998 February, 1999 February, 1986 February till 1987 March, Jupiter was there. Previously 74 and 75, and then 62 to 63. So why do we want to be looking at those? Because what you, let's say, experienced in 2000 and 2011, you might be experiencing similar themes. However, I would like to point out that those planetary alignments or cycles are not necessarily the same, because at that time Neptune was not there. Actually, the very last conjunction which took place between Jupiter and Neptune was in the sign of Aquarius on 26 degree, but there was also Chiron there. We're going to be looking at that very, very briefly. And then if you were born around these times, then actually it's even more pivotal for you, because it means that you're going to have a Jupiter return going on. And it's going to be emphasizing some of the events I'm kind of sharing to you today. So the previous cycles, what was going on? And then it's very important to look at. So as I said, the last conjunction happened in 2009 in the sign of Aquarius, which was on 26 degree. And then it participated together with Chiron. So there were loads of healing going on around it. Actually, on the day when the conjunction took place, that's when actually they announced that in South Africa, there is kind of a recession going on and the country kind of collapsed. So does it mean that we should be expecting a little bit of a recession? Unfortunately, we might need to, okay? Some countries will be experiencing those significantly. I did not go through plenty of countries. We're gonna be only touching base on US today, but US might be one of those who are actually impacted by this, but we're gonna come on to that. In 2009, we did have water problems. We had floods going on, we had water pollution. There were plenty of topics around the churches, especially around pedophile. There was volcano eruptions in Ireland. There was actually oil rig problems in Mexico, which was one of the biggest water pollution of the century so far. So one of the questions we might want to be asking is that, are we actually, are we, or should we experience similar things? Probably, unfortunately, yes. What I've put together for you today, and then I'm going to discuss that at the end of the lecture, some type of remedies and then how you can prepare for these, because I think that's the whole idea around it. And then in the very previous cycle, which was in 1998 to 1999, the euro was actually launched, which is, of course, nowadays a kind of like a strong currency. Can this actually indicate that we're going to have some type of problems with the euro? Yes, it can. But it can also indicate that there is going to be a new ways of payment coming up, maybe a new technological advancement, and that's very possible actually with the Uranus, North Node, Mars, Urania conjunction, which is going to be happening in July in the sign of Taurus. That's one of the financial signs of the 12 zodiacs. So yes, probably maybe a new ways of payment or payment methods we should be expecting with this Neptune Jupiter. Why is that? Jupiter is something to do with wealth, abundance, and Neptune is the planet of expenditure. So the way how we spend money, Neptune, and then the way how we make money, Jupiter, could actually indicate that, we're going to have a kind of like a new type of credit card or whatever it is. So I would like you to think back what was going on in your life and then in what ways it can be somehow similar to you. Now, something which is very interesting about this, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not so optimistic about Jupiter and Neptune conjunction, because think about it. What's special about Neptune Jupiter? What's special is that they always meet every 13 years, and they always meet in the next sign. So what does that mean? This year, they are meeting in the sign of Pisces. 13 years later, they're going to be meeting in the sign of Aries. 13 years after, it's going to be in Taurus, and so forth. So what it really shows us is that every 13 years, we somehow meant to be going through this evolutionary improvement. And we are somehow integrating these new elements and new kind of signs into our lives. So number 13 in tarot cards is actually something to do with the death cards. Now, Jupiter and Neptune meet in the very same sign every 166 years. So if I add up 166, that's also number 13. So number 13 in the tarot cards is actually something to do with death. And the death card kind of represents that we are meant to be releasing something in our life, leaving the past behind and moving towards a better future. Does it talk about death? Yeah, it can actually talk about death, but that's not necessarily the literal meaning of the death card in the tarot deck. It's more about somehow releasing yourself from past mistakes or something, not allowing the past to kind of haunt you in a sense, and then going towards something new. And if I add up 1 and 3, that comes up with number 4, which is actually about the king, kingdom, and the structure. So probably some type of structural type of things which needs to be left behind, in a sense, and it's an element of a renewal. It's kind of like crossing over. But of course, think about it. Let's say you have to leave a relationship behind, right? Some of us will be meeting actually their ideal partner. But what happens is that if I need to be leaving a relationship behind, it's gonna cause a little bit of a confusion. How shall I do that? I don't want to hurt the other person's feeling or whatever, you know. So there is always a little bit about confusion, disarray, temporary blindness. We don't want to actually do certain type of things. We want to be actually getting ready for this process. So typically, I would say that the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, from this perspective, at the beginning, it's not easy at all. Is it going to get easier? Probably yes. Probably in about 5-6 years' time, when Neptune and Jupiter will start trining each other. And Jupiter, of course, is going to be in an exalted position as well. It's going to get easier, but I think it's going to be sometimes around 2028. I've been saying it for a while that I think between 2026 to 2028, there is potentially a recession going on. But you know, I'm not gonna talk about that today. Maybe we're gonna talk about that a little bit closer to the time. Now, why is number 13 is interesting for us? Because that's actually a prime number, and the prime number is something which is indivisible by any other numbers. And number 13 actually represents kind of like a transcendental dimension of the godly energy. It's something to do with love and unity. It's something to do with understanding and the ability to kind of place yourself into other people's shoes. But if I think about this death card as well, crossing is kind of an indication that we're going to be meeting our ancestry lines. So this could really talk about downloading information from our ancestry line also. Now, number 13 is a very interesting number. I just wanted to put a couple of things about it onto the slides. For instance, the moon travels 13 degrees across the sky average each day. It's, to be precise, between 12 to 15, but the average movement of the moon is 13 degrees. There are 13 weeks in each of the 4 seasons. There are 13 lunar cycles each year. There are, you have got most probably 13 menstrual cycles each year as well. And think about what the menstrual cycle is about for a woman. It's very much about a rebirth. kind of like something to do with the ability to give birth to something, right? And that's what also Neptune really, Jupiter really talks about. It's a very fertile planet because it is hot and wet. And we need heat for the flowers to grow. And we need wet energy, such as rain, so that it can start blossoming. 13 is the only number in the Fibonacci sequence. In religion, Jesus had 12 disciplines, making 13 of them. Buddha had 13, actually. We have 13 chakras. People tend to believe that we've got 7. I'm not going to go into the rest of the chakras. You can actually look those up. We've got 13 major joints in our body. We've got, so 13 is something which appears quite a lot as in a renewal number, really. Now, let's talk about Pisces for a second, because of course, we are in a Pisces season. Let me just point a couple of things out here. Yes, we do have got now Neptune-Jupiter conjunction, but we also have got Venus there. We also have got Mars there from the 14th of April onwards. Yes, Jupiter will leave the sign of Pisces, but then Saturn will come into in 2023 March. What it really kind of indicates to me, and I wanted to point out this Saturn ingression into the sign of Pisces, is because what you are actually planting now, and that's the conjunction, planting the seeds. Saturn will test that for you once it moves into the sign of Pisces, or it will crystallize it for you. It's going to give it a form and a structure. So imagine that, for instance, it happens in your 10th house. You want to start a spiritual business. Saturn will come around and it's going to kind of give a structure to it. Yes, it's going to want you to kind of make tweaks here and there. Probably you're going to bump into some type of blockages with it, but it wants you to give a solid foundation to it. So we are really in a Piscean season at the moment. And for me, the higher manifestation of Pisces is about a mystical and spiritual awakening. It's about compassionate love. But this is something which is extremely hard because a compassionate love, in my opinion, is something which is very difficult because we are only able to love one person unconditionally, and that's typically our child. So especially, let's say, in the first 3 years of their life, after we're going to start having a little bit of an expectation from them, right? We want them to put the toys away. We want them to bring great grades from school and all those type of things. So Neptune, Jupiter, the Piscean element is about understanding other people's needs, being helpful towards them when it's needed, but not necessarily sacrificing the self to kind of save others all the time. Because I think Neptune, Jupiter somehow talks about the spoiled child syndrome. And if I spoil someone with so much help, they're going to get used to it. And what's going to happen is that we are actually giving them a wrong message. We are giving them a message that you are unable to do certain things on your own. And they're going to start believing it. And whenever they are in a minor problem, they're going to turn to us and they're going to want our help to kind of pull them out of a shitty situation. So Piscean energy for me is about understanding other people, helping them in the right way, but not necessarily offering everything on a silver plate. And that's where Jupiter is coming into the picture. Jupiter is someone who is generous, but it has got its own agenda. Jupiter wants to be respected. It wants to be a god. It wants to be admired. It kind of wants to be on the spotlight. So it's not necessarily, Jupiter can be selfish. Yeah, Neptune is kind of selfless, right? Neptune usually does things for others because they want to receive love back. They want to, yeah, they want to be loved. They want to be accepted the way they are. Pisces is extremely romantic. It's a little bit more traditional romanticism, really. So they love the flowers, they want courtship, they want dinner with candles, and so forth. So they are kind of dreaming about a love unity. So most of you, or plenty of you, can experience this love unity. We're gonna go on to that a lot more. Pisces is about imagining things. But with Neptune and Jupiter, it's not enough. Jupiter says that you must claim, you must take action about your dreams. So maybe your childhood dream is, because Jupiter actually represents children, maybe my childhood dream is that I wanted to be a ballet dancer. Then this is a combination when actually you have to go and do some ballet. Maybe it's not going to be your profession, but you somehow going to be feeding your soul. Pisces' highest manifestation is about making other people feel special, because Jupiter and Neptune is kind of like a give and take axis. So what I give to others, that's what I'm exactly going to be receiving back. Sometimes Jupiter is a little bit stubborn of accepting support. Neptune can have issues with that too. So it's a little bit of a give and take. If I scratch your back, you're gonna be scratching my back as well. So to give you a very silly example, if I give you $100, you're gonna have to give the $100 back. Or if you are unable to give the $100 back, then you're gonna give me something in return. So it's kind of like a universal balance, what it's talking about. So I kind of feel like how it might be playing out in the world is that kind of like equal rights for everyone type of energy. And let's be honest, that's never going to happen. So this is one of the reasons why I kind of find Jupiter and Neptune difficult, because Neptune and Jupiter is dreaming about an ideal world where there is equality, everyone loves each other, and all those type of things. But I don't think we humans are ready for that. We are craving it, but we are just not ready yet. Just an example, yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, and what they do is they do these kind of like, it's like a village concept really, where they swap items with each other. So the neighbor is cooking, then they bring a little bit of a food, then they do the same, and then they give it to them. Or, you know what, can we swap a little bit of a tomato? I've got potato instead. So that's kind of like cutting back on the costs and a little bit of a give and take type of things. And I think it's a very nice gesture with Neptune and Jupiter, and it really describes how it could work in a great way, that I give as well as I receive at the same time. Now, the lower manifestation of Pisces, and I did not want to put all of it down. I just kind of put down, you know, a few of them. There is a lot more to both categories, but the lower manifestation of Pisces is that, think about the Piscean symbol. As you can see on the picture, it's two fishes swimming in different direction. So it kind of talks about a duality here. And of course, they are kind of chasing each other. So it kind of talks about an inner struggle. So the problem with this Neptune Jupiter is that when we don't have the confidence, Jupiter, then it can become a struggle, and then it can kind of split us into like two people, kind of like a dual persona type of things. And one is craving for something, the other one is chasing the dreams, but nothing really happens. It could actually somehow indicate a little bit of a depression as well, We're going to speak about that Neptune and Jupiter are connected to suicidal thoughts and so forth. We're going to come back onto that. Pisces, lower manifestation, that is just go with the flow. And they want to try, or they try to hide their true identity or their own truth, because there is a people pleaser quality to it. Sometimes what deviates us to achieve our goals, and that's Jupiter, which is actually expansion, is that we just go with the flow, or we participate in loads of pleasure. And yeah, a little bit of a procrastinating. Oh, I do it tomorrow. I do it the week after. So it's kind of like, oh, I want to lose weight. Okay, Neptune is dreaming about being skinny. Let's suppose that your rising sign is Pisces. That could be one of the options, that you are dreaming about the perfect body. And then we I'm going to have a little bit of a cake today, or I'm going to have a glass of wine just today. So there is no real commitment behind it. Pisces is extremely emotional. And that's a good thing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes it's a bad thing, because what could happen is that if someone is actually telling us their own truth, Jupiter, then we take it to heart, and then we're going to kind of be depressed. Or if people are not living up to our expectations, then we're going to get disappointed about it. So there is an element of an expectation as well as a disappointment coming together with this constellation. Pisces can be sometimes fake, because they don't want confrontations with others. Therefore, it kind of hides partially the truth. And now that's not going to work with Jupiter. Jupiter needs to be honest. One of the lessons with Jupiter is not to cut corners. The counterpart of Jupiter is Saturn. So if you are looking at your Jupiter, you always must look at your Saturn as well in the chart, because they kind of work together. You must be looking at them from a kind of like a phase point of view. What phase I was born into, because it's going to give you plenty of ideas about how you can actually become successful when it comes to your, your career, for instance, or whatever it is, really. So learning to be upfront with Jupiter and Neptune conjunction is going to be important. The other side of the story is that with Piscean energy can be overly trusting. I would call the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction as the blind faith. Now, this is a problem, because unfortunately, I do believe, for instance, with Neptune and Jupiter, there will be plenty of fake wannabes, fake prophets, fake politicians, Jupiter, kind of fake moral codes, and then those who will blindly believe in these things, and they don't use their Mercury. And when you are examining Jupiter, you always should be looking at Mercury as well, because think about like a book writing. Mercury writes the book, Jupiter publishes the book. So we're talking about the Gemini and the Sagittarius axis. The two of them are not working without each other, okay? So there is an element of a need here to not to overtrust what you see. And Neptune is the planet of transcendental truth. So what it means is that you're going to have to sometimes listen to your intuition. You're going to have to collect facts about certain type of matters. You're going to have to examine those, and you're going to have to put your own truth together with other people's truth, and then kind of merging them and then having a new truth to it. But at the same time, accepting the fact that my own truth is not necessarily just one truth. There are kind of like different angles to it. And if you don't do that, this conjunction could be a little bit difficult for you. And unfortunately, the last I put down for Pisces as the lower manifestation is that they can easily be drawn into shady things. So it's about fraud, it's about lies, disappointment, misleading. And because Jupiter talks about publishing and sharing information, expect that the social media is going to be full of crap. Sorry for my French. And if you believe what you see, and then you're going to get kind of involved in political debates, Jupiter, politics, then unfortunately, you are not going to see the spiritual signs, Neptune, what you are meant to be doing with yourself. So one of the remedies I put down for you, which is going to be later on, is to stay away from, as much as you can, of course. I know it's very hard, but try to stay away from any type of political debates and all these type of things, because, or a little bit, just have a little bit of a downtime, Neptune, from social media. Maybe just 2 hours a day, or just half an hour a day, or 6 hours, or 1 day a week, whatever it is, so that actually you filter all the information. And this word filtering is very important, because the opposite sign from Pisces is Virgo. So we need an element of a Virgo going on in our life as well to operate the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction very well. Okay, so I hope that kind of makes sense so far. Now, let's just examine Neptune and Jupiter a little bit, what they want and how we can merge them. Both Jupiter and Neptune represent the function of personal growth and transformation toward another. It kind of talks about the higher level of consciousness. Now, what do I mean by that? Third house is the factual knowledge. 12th house is the spiritual knowledge, something to do with your intuition. The 9th house is the merging of your factual and spiritual knowledge. And the 6th house is something to do with testing all the knowledge what I've got so far, which one works for me and which doesn't. So if we look at it this way, then it clearly emphasizes here the need to listen to my intuition, to gather the facts, to bring them together, and then, but after testing what I kind of tried. So maybe imagine that Victor is teaching you about, I don't know, zodiacal releasing, for instance. I got the knowledge, third house, and Victor said, you should be doing it this way, but my intuition kind of says something different, or at least my intuition says that maybe, you know what, moon actually represents, I don't know, dark blue color. So I'm just going to go with my intuition. And I'm going to merge the two. And then after, I'm going to be testing this zodiacal releasing. Does it actually work or not necessarily? If it doesn't work, it's just rubbish. Let's kind of dispose that. And that's the Neptunian part. Learning to dispose things which are not needed anymore. Just letting them go. Kind of saying thank you to the universe that, yeah, it was very useful. I learned a lot. But you know what? It doesn't work for me. I did mention that Neptune and Jupiter together is very much about yearning for the ideals, ideal world, ideal financial situation, ideal partner, ideal home environment, and all those type of things. Both planets really want to be finding the meaning to life. They want to be connecting with a higher power. So it's an ultimate spiritual type of energy, really. Both are somehow either religion or spirituality, metaphysical or philosophical type of inclinations, but it's about grasping one of those. Now, because it happens in the sign of Pisces, which is a little bit more mystical, if it was in the sign of Sagittarius, which is more philosophical and religious, but I think this is the rebirth of spirituality and psychology as well at the same time. But if something is really needed in the world, those people are going to get chased. So one of my world prediction is that they're going to put some restrictions on spiritual work. There is going to be kind of like a law about it. Jupiter, I don't know who can post videos about it, or, you know, maybe they're going to put it into the education system somehow. And then you can only do it if you have got a degree in it. But I kind of feel like it's a little bit of a, what was that in English? The witch, well, I don't know how it's called, but witch hunt. Yeah, that's the word. Witch hunting. So unfortunately, because Jupiter is abundance, the world is going to see money in spirituality, and therefore they want to make money out of it. Unfortunately, that's one of the predictions I'm making here. But both planets are very generous, so probably we're going to have a lot more people preparing free materials about unity, love, spirituality, financial matters, and so forth. It's very important that we look beyond the petty details, and then we are not getting stuck with the minor details. It doesn't mean that the minor details are not important, but I'm not going to get hung up on it. It's about Neptune, and Jupiter is about shooting for the stars. Imagine 3-4 times a day that you are successful. And there is something called, which I think it's going to be blooming actually in the near future, in the next decade, basically, it's called kinesiology. Because that's something to do with reprogramming the mind to be a lot more positive. Kind of like a little bit of a brain control, really. I think that's going to be one of the fields which is going to get picked up quite nicely in the next decade. But one of the ways you can really work with this is, let me tell you an example, a personal example. I was about 19, 20 years old, and that's when I started studying kinesiology. And what happened was we learned about how to charge up a mirror. What it kind of talks about is that you charge up the mirror, so the mirror is actually going to reflect what you want to see. And I wanted to see a skinny version of Victor. So I charged up the mirror, and then I wrote on the mirror with a post-it note that I see myself skinny. That was the sentence. I made such a big mistake because I started seeing myself skinnier day by day. But 2 months down the line, when I was having a sleepover at one of my friends, and then I looked into the mirror, I realized I put on so much weight. The mirror started showing what I wanted to see, but that wasn't the reality. And that's the Neptune Jupiter. Be careful what you wish for, because you're gonna see that. So if you are asking the universe, Neptune, then ask the universe smartly and be very precise. And that's where you need the Virgo element, that I'm gonna be kind of putting that wish together in a very, very smart way. And it's not gonna be a quick one. And the problem that Jupiter fires Neptune up. So we want to wish very quickly. That's why Jupiter rules the greed. That we become very greedy, and then we jump into situation without any type of conclusion, and then the regret, Neptune, comes later. So one of the ways you can charge up your mirror, if someone doesn't know, maybe you want to kind of talk to a kinesiologist or someone who is actually doing this, and you know, and then just making sure that the intention you have today around Neptune and Jupiter is very precise. Okay, so looking beyond the petty details, but at the same time looking into the details is actually important. Neptune, Jupiter both actually relates to freedom. So, and this is not an energy which always wants to be obedient to a higher law, but at the same time it wants to. So there is a moral code involved here, but I also want to do things in a free way. So these two together can be sometimes a little bit opposing energy also. Jupiter, which is actually a proud planet, Neptune is a submissive planet. So which one shall I do? Shall I listen to this one? Shall I listen to that one? So this aspect can be coming with plenty of confusion. I don't know who to merge with. I don't know who to follow. I don't know who to believe. And of course, it's kind of like the mixed messages, really. Problem with these two planets, that none of them are logical. So if you don't integrate a little bit of a Virgo, which is one of the most logical signs, then there could be a little bit of an issue. So therefore, looking at where Mercury is in the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction chart is going to be very important, which has just moved into the sign of Taurus. So definitely how to make money and money laundry and how to save money and all these type of things is going to be one of the biggest topic with Neptune and Jupiter. Kind of like exposing the people who are taking away the money from other people, the poor, the underprivileged, Neptune. And of course, it's opposed. I mean, there is the Jupiterian part there, which talks about the rich. So there is going to be a little bit of an exposing around it. Let me tell you again a personal example. Yesterday, I was on Facebook and I saw a lady posted a receipt that she was paying by card, and then the amount got rounded up, and it was only like a penny, so not a big amount, and she wasn't complaining about it, but she was like, why does it happen? And people started attacking her. We are only talking about a penny. Poor shop, they have to pay, I don't know, 5% if you pay by credit card, and then they don't make any money, and so forth. And then it really reminded me of this Neptune Jupiter, which was not about that one penny, but it was about the principle that why do they round up the amount of money? Do they have the right? Do they not have the right to do that? And of course, these people did not really understand. However, then what's the difference between 1 penny and $10? Basically nothing really, just 1 zero or a couple of zeros, right? So then why are we getting upset about $10? And anyway, that's just my opinion, but I kind of saw a little bit of a Neptune Jupiter popping up there, and it kind of reminded me that there is going to be plenty of arguments around financials in the near future. Jupiter has got the hunger to know, and Neptune also, but it's about knowing the unknown. So it's about the perception and the knowledge, how we merge them. Neptune tends to be expressing the knowledge through spirituality and art and you know, visions and motions and pictures and all those type of things. And Jupiter is more about kind of standing on a stage and then actually teaching others. So something around the physical or philosophical and the higher knowledge kind of meeting here, the physical and the spiritual knowledge. So I think there is going to be plenty of free courses coming up in the world. They're going to be prompting you to study something. They want to be restarting the economy by kind of giving you a learning curve and then job opportunities. Probably we're going to see these type of things in the future. However, both planets can lead to ego inflation. This is now one of the favorite words of this century or decade is narcissism. Well, narcissism is actually it belongs to Neptune. Typically Neptune's sun aspect, by the way. I'm not going to go into it. Why? Just take it. And I think this could actually talk about the ego inflation, in the sense that there are going to be more and more narcissistic people appearing in our life. So we do need to be mindful about it. Both planets love glamour and they love putting up a show. So whether it's going to be more theatrical type of people in the world, and they're going to be overacting when it comes to their suffering and all those type of things, probably more and more people are going to be claiming benefits, and they're going to make some reasons for it in a sense. But also this could really talk about that people might become a little bit more selfish. And however, the message with Jupiter and Neptune would be giving as much as we can, but not overstretching ourselves. If I can't give, I'm not going to give. And what happens is that Jupiter actually expands the ego, and Neptune actually tries to dissolve the ego. So the two planets are clashing here. Which one is going to happen? And probably the world is going to be divided. Jupiter is more extroverted. It's kind of trying to express something towards the outer world. Jupiter is about acting on their ideas. Neptune is more inward pulling, and the expression happens towards the inner world. So it tends to be more self-sacrificing. So again, it kind of shows to me that the world is going to go into two directions. There are going to be people who are kind of living up to their dreams, and there are going to be the ones who are suffering. And those people who are living up to their dreams are going to take advantage on the underprivileged people. Shall we blame them? I'm not too sure, because everyone can have the opportunity if they dare to dream, and they have to be grabbing the opportunity. But it doesn't mean that I should be sweeping them under the carpet, or I should be knocking them over. So it's kind of like how I imagine this Neptune and Jupiter could work, that, you know what, you have a business, I have a business, you know what, I help you if you help me. And that's how I would see this ideal world. Most probably it's not going to happen. So that's a reason, again, why I don't think this Neptune-Jupiter is the nicest energy ever. Both planets tend to indulge in intellectual speculations. That's another danger, which I kind of find with this. They tend to believe what they want to believe, and therefore this could be the aspect of self-deception. They tend to believe that everyone has the same moral code. So I'll give you an example. It happened actually recently, that this person really wanted a plastic surgery. And what happened was that they looked up the prices, and then looked up some of the reviews. And let's say the plastic surgeon's review was 3 out of 5, and charged, let's say, $3,000. It happened just a couple of weeks ago to someone I know. And the other doctor cost, let's say, $5,000. The reviews were 4.5, so a lot better, or 4.8. Oh, but I can save 2,000. And you know what? He was really nice guy, and I really enjoyed the conversation and so forth. Well, he did a crappy job, and then this person ended up paying almost 2 times more than originally she should have, because there needed to be some corrections done and so forth. So that's the kind of like the Neptune-Jupiter energy, that maybe we become a little bit too greedy, and greedy in a sense that, ooh, let me save a little bit more money. Okay. And obviously this person believed this doctor that they were very good, those reviews, just because actually she did ask about the reviews from the doctor, and the doctor said, oh, that's the competitors, they are trying to drag me down because I've got more clients than them. So there was an element of a misleading there going on. Okay. So yeah, just being kind of a little bit mindful about who you trust. Kind of ask questions. And that's the Mercurian part, the other side, the Virgo, that I ask questions, I examine the situations. That's going to be very important with this conjunction. Neptune and Jupiter, unfortunately, talks about mood swings. It could talk about self-pity, becoming a martyr, or a self-divine martyr. I'm going to speak about that a lot more in depth in a second. But Neptune and Jupiter, as I kind of indicated, it somehow connects with death in the tarot card. I can imagine that there is going to be, unfortunately, more and more suicidal attempts, or more and more death in regards to homelessness, because maybe with this Taurus and Scorpio nodal shifts, the bank are kind of gonna want you to give the money back, or mortgage issues and so forth. Yes, again, I kind of believe that it's a problem. But also, Neptune and Jupiter has got a tendency to want to have a brighter future. There is nothing wrong with it. But Jupiter jumps into situations which they are not able to. So Jupiter says yes to things. It's kind of like a Santa Claus planet. Plenty of opportunities. Yeah, let's go for it. And then what happens is that I jump into something which I should not have. So be mindful about scammers, people who want to get you into situations. Don't jump right onto it, because yeah, you might be jumping into something wrong overall. That's okay, I'm muted. That's a little bit of a danger with that. So Jupiter always says yes to things, Saturn says no. So you might want to be sometimes looking at the position of Saturn as well, because it might be telling you something that you should not do this, you should not do that. Lessons of Pisces. So some of the lessons we have got on a collective level is that there are bigger things in life than us. Whatever happens in the world, it does impact us on an individual level as well. So we should not be staying, I mean, I did say that try to stay away from politics and all those type of things, and that's true. I'm not asking you to put your head in the sand. Just don't go too much about it. However, look around in the world and think about, you know, like if the bees die, then we eventually gonna die as well. Don't just think about yourself, but think about what's gonna happen in 20 years time, 40 years time, and so forth, kind of with the next generation. And that's the Neptunian part. It's about trusting the invisible energies, because there are invisible energies. Just think about when you take off your jumper, or, you know, it's all proven there are invisible energies. It's making spiritual bonds with others. Open up yourself to spirituality as much as possible. Prepare to start fresh in life. And especially if you have got plenty of fixed energy in your chart, well, that could show that we are a little bit stubborn. And Neptune and Jupiter wants you to go with the flow and look at the opportunities, examine them, but then go for them. Have faith in yourself. Without faith and without lack of confidence, can I just ask everyone to keep themselves muted, please? Because I can see that I always mute the same person. So have faith in yourself. Without faith, there is no achievement, basically. And probably the biggest lesson with the Piscean energy is that we need to realize that we are all victims of universal laws. And then we are just a kind of like a pawn in a little game. So those would be some of the lessons with the Piscean energy. Now, a little bit of a mythology about Pisces, very, very briefly, because I think it gives a little bit of an additional meaning. Lala, can I ask you to keep yourself muted? Because I keep muting you, and then there is a little bit of a background noise there. Thank you. So a little bit of a mythology about Pisces. Pisces represents two fish. Sometimes they actually represented by a shark. And the story is that what happened was Aphrodite and her son Eros, who we call as Cupid in the Roman mythology, they were trying to escape from the monster typhoon. And what they did was, and Gaia sent this monster to stop the indulgence of the gods, because they were just overdoing it. And what they did was they tied themselves together so that they are not going to be losing each other. So what it really talks about is that they trusted each other and they jumped into the sea. And which is kind of very much about the unknown, right? I don't know where I'm jumping. I'm just jumping off a cliff. So jumping into the unknown, jumping into the ocean, but they trusted each other. And they didn't know what to expect. They didn't know they were going to be alive, which they were, but they managed to escape from the typhoon. So it does talk about that faith element, what we should be making sure that we have. And I'd like to point out that Venus, which is Aphrodite, is also in the sign of Pisces. So this element is talking about repairing connections, repairing self-worth matters in our life. Because repairing connections is important because you never know when you can count on that person. So there is an element of a forgiveness. Okay, they screwed me over last year. I'm never gonna forget, but I'm gonna forgive. There is that message with these plenty of psychological, Piscean trait, what we are going to be experiencing in the next 4 years. Very briefly, let me just have a drink because my mouth is dry, and maybe I should be catching up a little bit on your comments as well, in case there are some bits and bobs. So let me just run through those very quickly. There was a massive shooting in New York. Squaring my natal nodes. Okay, in whole sign Leo rising. Okay. 20, hello, I have Mercury 24, Sun 24, Mercury 24, astrocartography, 23-degree Juno. Hopefully it's a brilliant relationship, which we're gonna be experiencing there. Really abrupt, intense winds came out of nowhere here just now, 7 minutes before the exact transits. Yes, I'm gonna speak about the natural disasters also coming up. Is 4 degree too wide an orb for this conjunction? No, it's not. Natal Venus 21 degree, that's definitely, so especially 21 to 25 degree. I can't hear anything. I'm not too sure why that is. Everyone can hear me. I don't see anyone complaining. So wanting to be size 0, we are sharing the same rising sign, and I want to be a size 0 too. Now Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happens on my relocated rising sign. So I'm going for an operation tomorrow, the second phase of my weight loss journey. So yeah, that's what I wished for, and then I have to do something about it. Okay, how about part of fortune in 24 degree? Hopefully some luck. I think it has started already with Facebook and banning certain spiritual hashtags. Oh, I didn't know about that. Everyone is an astrologer, exactly. I've made that mistakes. Which one? Yeah, exactly. Letting the intuition to lead you a little bit sometimes, but also doing enough research. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Yeah, I kind of like that saying with Jupiter and Neptune. Thank you, Shaunis. Okay, is Cupid the same as Cupido? Yes, it is. Great. Look at Jupiter and Saturn phase like a moon phase. Yes, exactly. Looking at that way. It was a black screen, but you have to log back in. Okay, so, but everyone can see the screen? Yes, you can see the screen. Okay, great, thank you. So let's move on. Just one more little thing about before we go into some predictions. Already I made some, but there are more which I want to make. Is the psychological Pisces. And in psychology, a drama triangle describes the Piscean problems the most. Now, you can see here that we've got the rescuer, which is very much about wanting to save others all the time. It wants to take care of people, even without asking them. They don't ask the question, can I help you? They just kind of try to step in. So sometimes the rescuer can be a little bit suffocating. And as I mentioned already before, what sometimes could happen with this is that we give a wrong message to the people that you are incapable of doing something, and they're going to start believing that. And then at the end, this is when, for instance, there is that sacrificial movement of losing, for instance, a mom, but the mom cooked for me. Mom, I don't know, washed my clothing, and I don't know how to actually start the washing machine and all these type of things. And then we're going to start feeling helpless. And then what the rescuer is going to do, it wants to find someone who is going to actually help them. And maybe they're going to marry a millionaire. Maybe they're going to marry someone who is, you know, able to raise kids or whatever it is. And then we've got the victim part, and that's the next step of it. Well, let's say I got married into a very bad marriage, but I had to, and I'm going to say, poor me, you know, poor me, you know, I'm being used. I have to be washing up and cooking and all those type of things. And then that's where the persecutor part comes in, when I'm going to start projecting something onto someone else. I'm going to blame them. I'm going to criticize them. Even I hurt them somehow because I'm going to say certain type of things to them. And then maybe we're going to tell them that you can't do anything right. You always make a mistake, and so forth. And then, of course, it brings in a superior feeling as well, because I do things right. You don't do things right, so I'm better than you. And if you don't recognize, especially the strong Piscean people, this in your life, then you might be living in dream. I know this from myself. I'm a Pisces rising sun, and I'm going to admit it. And that's the Jupiter, Neptune conjunction with the Jupiter, that I admit it. I claim it. I own it. Yes, I tend to fall into this drama triangle. I try to help them. Let's say, in many cases, what happens is that people ask me to give them money, and then they give me a soapy story, and I do give them money. And then after, when I'm not getting it back, poor me, everyone is using me. And then when the next person comes, I'm going to start, oh, you know what, screw you, you just want to use me, poor me, you know, and so forth. So I tend to do this. Try to recognize how you fall into this category, because with Neptune and Jupiter, it's going to be very easy to go through this drama triangle. So from a psychological perspective, Neptune-Jupiter conjunction tells you that you should let go of self-pity. You should step outside of the role of this, all these type of things like persecutor, rescuer, and victim, and how are you going to actually do that. It tells you to forgive myself and forgive others. Everyone makes mistakes, and we are all humans. And be able to say no to others, create boundaries. And that's actually extremely important with this constellation. So that's the psychological message of Neptune and Jupiter. And how you're going to create boundaries is going to be Saturn in Aquarius. I'm not going to talk about Saturn in Aquarius. You've heard a lot in the last a couple of years. Everyone was talking about it, but that's kind of like the solution to Neptune and Jupiter. Of course, you want to be looking at your own Saturn in your chart also. Where does it fall? And that's going to be how to kind of create some boundaries in your life. Now, in order for us to understand Neptune and Jupiter a little bit more, we might want to be looking at Neptune discovery chart. Of course, Neptune is the planet of confusion. We do have got confusion about the discovery dates. Basically, what happened was Neptune was actually discovered in 1612 and 1613 by Galileo. However, he didn't know that he was actually seeing a planet. He thought it was a different type of moon, what he found on the sky. So he kind of disregarded the idea of this being a planet. Of course, he was confused, very Neptunian. And he kind of didn't believe his own eyes, in a sense. He didn't listen to his own intuition, in a sense. Now, Neptune was discovered, according to Galileo, on 26th degree of Virgo. Wow. Neptune and Jupiter, and the Neptune at that time was conjuncting Jupiter also. Now, the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happens exactly the opposite, just 3 degrees away. So it kind of tells me that we people are going to be very confused, especially, let's say, around medical matters, healthcare related matters, because this is the Virgo Pisces axis. Unfortunately, this Neptune-Jupiter can talk about things like there is going to be a new COVID coming around. It could actually indicate record number of cases, record number of deaths as well in regards to people. It might be somehow, you know, kind of creating a fear, or it's true, God knows, but definitely Neptune-Jupiter says that we need to be, you know, examining every part of the truth, rather than starting to come up with some, how's it called, this theory of conspiracy theory. That's the word I was looking for. Okay. Oh, sorry, I asked someone to unmute. I wasn't going to do that, so please don't unmute yourself. So I think that's going to be possibly a topic, or maybe it's just a different variant of COVID. But actually, I'm not going to go into it, but Neptune-Jupiter cycle does talk about pandemics. So it's very possible that something is going to happen around it. Jupiter as in the planet of travel, Neptune as in shipping and overseas and sea and oceans. There might be some type of laws and legislations around shipping, which again, it's not a shock to me. Let me tell you why. Because of course, Brexit happened in England, and already there are confusions about who can do fishing, how to do the shipping, because where does the ocean or the sea belong to? Is that England? Is that Ireland? Is that this and that? So there are unfortunately debates about this already. And I think this Neptune-Jupiter can magnify this, or at least make it a bigger problem. Recently there was, and one more thing which let me talk about, the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction has been going on since 17th of February, by the way. So don't just look at it what's going on right now today, but what has been going on since 17th of February, because they have been within orb since then. And Turkey also announced last month that no one can come close to my shores. You can't cross by. No Ukraine, no Russia, no America, because we don't want to take part in this war situation whatsoever. So in a sense, that was also around, can I use your waters? Can I use your sea? Can I not? So this might be a topic which is going to come up in the near future. Kind of, where are the borders? Because Neptune, in a sense, talks about borders, but it doesn't have any borders, right? So belongings could be a topic here. Neptune and Jupiter. Neptune is always dissolving. And what you see here is that Neptune and Saturn, oh, okay, so sorry, we're talking about the discovery chart of Neptune. Now, and then Neptune got discovered in the mid 40s in the 19th century. And actually, that was the time when they really knew that that's Neptune, okay? So Galileo didn't know, and then there was this German astronomer who came around and then saw Neptune, and it's Neptune. So there was this debate, who discovered Neptune? Doesn't matter. But in that moment when this German astrologer found Neptune, Neptune and Saturn were in conjunction on 25 degrees. How interesting again. No, nothing interesting about it. Sorry. Oh yeah, how interesting. There is something interesting about it. That in 2009, the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happened exactly on 25, almost 26 degrees of Aquarius. So something got triggered there also. But if we start looking at this discovery chart very, very briefly, because we just want to have a little bit of a clue about it. Neptune wants to dissolve the structure and the boundaries, and that's Saturn, in kind of like the society, and that's the Aquarian part. And that's what happened. I think that's the process which kind of started in 2009, and it's gonna somehow carry forward with this conjunction in 2000 and today. And I kind of believe that when maybe some of these social injustice and rules are going to kind of get broken down, is going to be 2026 and after, when Saturn and Neptune will be making a conjunction on 0 degree of Aries. That's my kind of prediction. That's something which started in 2009. Go back in history, think about what was going on in 2009, and that's, we're gonna see the same things repeating. I think Russia will rise, by the way. Neptune is actually a Roman god of the sea. And yeah, so it was discovered in 1846, 26 degree, and so forth. Now, worth having a look at what was going on around when Neptune went into the sign of Pisces around that time. Well, firstly, there were plenty of mathematical and electromagnetic radiation discoveries. By the way, mathematical matters are ruled by Neptune. You might be wondering, really, Victor, you are crazy. No, I'm not crazy. Math is ruled by Neptune because behind the numbers, there is an invisible power. Okay, the numbers were discovered by Pythagoras, right? And then he was the one who introduced plenty of the mathematical matters. But he worked with astrology also. So there is meaning behind the numbers. There were the first solar flare studies happening around that time, first oil drilling, first studies in epidemiology. There was cholera actually hitting around that time. Actually, anesthetics were firstly used around that time. And even though the first photographs were taken before, but that was the very first time when they started using colored photographs. So, shall we expect similar topics? Probably. We're going to have mathematical matters discovered, or maybe the mathematical matter is going to get restructured completely. How interesting there was the first oil drillings, and then now we've got problems with oil. So probably in the next decade, there is going to be a new way, a new petrol, new oil type of things. Probably the oil business is going to be running quite well in the next 5 years, but after maybe not so well. They're going to come up with something else in 2026, 28. Anesthetics, well, firstly used. They're going to come up with something new, surely, new ways. Probably there is going to be an upgrade going on around cinema, around photographs. I don't know, I think there is 5Ds now. Probably we're going to go up to 10Ds in the next 10 years. Now, Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2011. So Jupiter and kind of Neptune are just missed each other, really. They were in the same sign for a while in Pisces, but they were not conjuncting. And 2011, tsunamis, floods, climate change, mass migration, rise of hackers, fake accounts, social media appearance. It started blooming. Everyone wanted to be famous. If you go back and then start looking at spiritual channels, they kind of started about 10 years ago. The oldest one you're going to find is about 11, 12 years ago. No wonder. Since 2011, we had 5 pandemics. So all of a sudden, every couple of years, there is a pandemic going on. They are not widely spread, though. It's just kind of targeting certain type of areas, but there are a lot more going on. And really, these conspiracy theories, lies and truth, and really started around that time. What Jupiter does now is it magnifies all of it. So unfortunately, we should be expecting floods, big winds, tidals, and all these type of things. We're going to have some issues around it. And I kind of believe that either there is going to be a regulation around social media, or social media is going to regulate certain type of groups, but there is going to be an element of a social media change. We're going to speak about the virtual reality and so forth very shortly, okay? So that's why I'm kind of suggesting to be very mindful about conspiracy theories. I know I am very negative about the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. I promise I'm going to be positive very shortly, okay? Because I put down many fields, which I think it's going to be blooming. And Neptune and Jupiter, it's a wealth combo, by the way. There are 15 wealth combo in astrology. I mean, I use 15. And Jupiter and Neptune is one of them, okay? So it can promise you plenty of wealth. So I give you some hints and tips where I think you should invest or stuff like that, where there is going to be a little bit of a money, but that's coming up, okay? I know I'm a little bit negative about this, but think about it. If we need healers in the society, it means because there is a need for it, right? So if we need more doctors, it's because there are more sick people. If we need more prisons, Neptune, because, well, prison is also Uranus, by the way, but anyway, if we need more prisons, it means because there is going to be plenty of criminals. If we need plenty of psychologists, then it's because people are suffering. So there is this cause and effect going on with this Neptune and Jupiter, and that's why I'm a little bit afraid of it. Now, what happened in 1856? That was the very last time when Neptune and Jupiter conjuncted in the sign of Pisces. So it happened 166 years ago, long time. The first spiritual books actually came out. What I mean by that is that it was more about the spirit work. They even wrote books about step-by-step guides, how to connect with the spirits, how to talk to the dead. They kind of proved that the dead people want to be speaking to us and they want to guide us. So there was this kind of collective interest in mysteries and the mysticism overall. There was a spiritual movement in a sense. They even took photographs of spirits. Whether it was illusion, it was true or not, but photographs started appearing that there is this guy standing here and there is this one haunting the person. This was a period of time which is called the Third Great Awakening. So there was the Jehovah Witnesses appearing, there was the holiness movement. If you don't know what those are, then look them up, I'm not gonna explain it. There was unfortunately an opium war going on. The British and the French Empire were fighting against China. And they were fighting against the exportation of opium and chemicals. Well, Neptune rules drugs, pharmaceutical things. So probably there will be plenty of pharmacies opening, or pharmaceutical businesses are going to be thriving, surely. Yes, probably some of the opiums and drugs and marijuana and all these type of things going to get started to be legalized. I mean, I know it's getting legalized, by the way, and I think the last Jupiter and Neptune conjunction actually started, sorry, that was their nodes. The last time the nodes were in Scorpio and Taurus, they started legalizing marijuana as kind of like a medical option. So I kind of understand that. And since then, in 2009, 2010, other states started introducing too. I think there are 5 states now, but I think it's gonna spread overall. And of course, it can increase the number of criminal activities as well, okay? And then 1856, there was a pandemic going on, which was called diphtheria, something it was to do with the throat infection and so forth. And what happened was the travel was disrupted and the doctors were confused about what to do with this pandemic. Well, does it sound similar or does it sound familiar? Travel disruption, not being able to travel, doctors don't know what to do with it. This time around, the people don't know whether to believe it or not. Shall I take the vaccine? Shall I not vaccinate? And all those type of things. Very similar. And Neptune-Jupiter conjunction in 1856. So here is some of my predictions. I think there is going to be more mediums in the world. There is going to be people claiming that they are able to speak with the dead. They are able to get in touch with the spirit world. I think psychology will somehow rebirth. I kind of believe that kind of everyone is going to have their own psychologist. There is going to be a need for people to have someone they can share their problems and their secrets with. So I think it's going to be blooming. People are going to start asking the question, what's the fastest path for higher consciousness? Shall I say yes to things or shall I stay away from it? So people are going to get divided into 2 different groups. One of them is going to be the believers. The other one is going to be the non-believers. And it could kind of talk about this religious clash with the spiritual community. It probably does talk about whether you trust your own abilities or you don't necessarily trust your dreams. Remember I said Neptune is the co-ruler of Pisces, which is the very last sign of the zodiac. So it's about closing a chapter and then starting a new chapter. But we do need to release something. So we're going to go through individually what you should be releasing and what you should be claiming to kind of go the best way, in the best way with this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. But one of the question is, can you let go of any type of greed, what you have in your life? Letting go Neptune, greed is Jupiter. What are you greedy about? Is that financial? Is that relationship attachment or detachment? There are 4 types of relationship attachments, which I'm going to make a webinar about next month, probably for my Patreons. It's about releasing self-doubt. and insecurities and claiming a spiritual position in the world. You have got the right to be spiritual. It's about having the right to act on your own dreams, not just dreaming about it, but acting on them as well. It's about listening to your inner voice. It's about kind of like having an angelic wisdom, and that's Neptune, angels. So kind of like listening to the guardian angels. Some of the mythology says that you always have got two angels on your shoulders. One of them is the good one, the other one is a little bit of an evil one. None of them wants you to kind of suffer, or not to suffer, but not to achieve something. But one of them is holding you back, the other one is pushing you. So which one are you going to be listening to? Neptune and Jupiter is kind of like shooting an arrow, Jupiter, in the fog. I don't even know where that is going. So am I going to follow it blindly, or, you know, or what's going to happen? So somehow this is about aiming for something impossible, but I'm making sure that I'm not going to sit on my laurels. I'm actually going to go after it. I think there is going to be a mass migration happening with this Neptune and Jupiter conjunction. I think people are going to go around, probably just like when the European Union formed. Is it because the European Union is going to struggle? Is it because US kind of going to start closing some of the doors down? I'm going to go into the US chart, and I kind of believe there is going to be some travel restrictions. And maybe it's not because of COVID, just some countries will be fed up of kind of feeding other people, in a sense. Not in a bad way, don't get me wrong. I'm also an immigrant. I'm living in another country. But, you know, they can have that kind of bad or wrong mentality, in a sense. It could talk about the unification of nations as well. So either it talks about not having any kind of boundaries and then everyone can travel wherever they want to. I kind of don't think it's going to happen, because Saturn Neptune will be meeting in Aries. So I think they're going to make it very restrictive to get visa, or it's going to get a lot more expensive overall. But I can imagine that certain countries will unite. Maybe such like Hungary will get, for instance, Transylvania back. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's just an example, okay, what I wanted to come up with. Or I can imagine that somehow Ukraine will reach the EU. I can actually imagine such thing also. So there is going to be kind of like a shift in perceptions. It's kind of like trying something out which we haven't tried before. It's kind of like new ways of going about something. Why? Because even though it's quite a wide sextile, but Uranus is sextiling this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. It's wide, but it's an applying sextile to it. I think the law system can change quite significantly. I think the education system will change significantly. Maybe our students, our current students, or the future generation is going to start learning about psychology, for instance, because they want to kind of prepare them psychologically as well, how harsh the world is overall. A little bit of a danger I'm having with this Neptune Jupiter, that people might believe that they are uncontrollable and kind of unstoppable, in a sense that we want our freedom and then we don't want the restrictions. And it could talk about very strict rules, what obviously the other side is kind of trying to do here. Ideally, this would be talking about the healing of the society. So probably we're going to start seeing very shortly that people are going to try to heal the economic situation. There is inflation going on now. There is the war going on. So I think there is going to be some peace initiations starting probably, well, my prediction was that the Ukraine and the Russian war is going to last for about 18 months. So I think there is going to be some peace initiations going to start when Jupiter is going to get close by to Pallas Athene. But I'm going to speak about that when Jupiter goes into Aries. Because I believe that this war is going to last for about 18 weeks. So that would be kind of June. This could talk about that how much your illusion is going to get inflated. So there is going to be plenty of false prophets out there. And this is one of the problems I'm having with astrologers nowadays. And then I might be talking against myself now, but anyway, I know people who are claiming themselves of being an astrologer with only using transits, for instance, or they only have been studying astrology for a year. You know, I'm not going to brag. I'm a very strong Jupiterian person. I can brag a lot, so please stop me. But I've been studying astrology for 22 years and I don't stop. I still study. Every day I learn, I read about something. And it took me 17 years to claim myself as an astrologer. So it really frustrates me that some people claim themselves after learning 1 year and they only use transits or, you know, anyway, that's just my opinion, okay? So I would like you to be very careful who you are putting your faith into. And don't be shocked that they're gonna hack your Instagram account and Facebook and they're gonna introduce themselves as you and then charging money for others, because probably this is going to be appearing very, very significantly. Okay. There is no such thing. I believe that there should be a minimum time to claim competency in astrology. Don't get me wrong. So I don't want to discourage you not to start something like that. But some of these people I'm talking about, I don't even know how to say it, but I know that their knowledge is not there, okay? I mean, I don't wish, but at the same time, let me just point something out. I always believe that you are always going to be attracting clients who kind of deserve you because they want to be, they must hear something from you, okay? So therefore, I don't want to discourage you not to start something. What I'm trying to encourage you actually is to keep studying and don't give up on your astrological study if you want to have a spirit, or not just astrology, any type of spiritual business. Because with Neptune and Jupiter, the ego gets inflated. Oh yeah, I'm the best. And you know, I can tell you, learn from me because I'm the best. I'm not gonna do that because I always tell my students that you should get out there and learn from others. That's so important because my truth is my own truth. And there is going to be truth in other people's truth also, if that kind of makes sense. Okay. And there are some great teachers out there. You should be learning and you should be listening from them too. And I do the same. You know, I learn from Demetra. You know, I love whenever Frank Clifford does a webinar, even if it's about the ascendant or, you know, some silly topics which I kind of know about, I still listen to him because I love listening to him. There are not many astrology teachers I like. If I'm very picky about it, I'm going to be honest. But the ones I like, I buy every single webinar or whatever it is, or I go there to their live presentations, you know, and then I want to hear what they say because there is always one sentence which is worth it. Okay. Okay. So anyway, my favorite astrologer from a teaching point of view is definitely Frank Clifford. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but anyway, I'm not saying that the rest are not good, you know, just I also love Glenn Perry. I think he's very brilliant from a psychological perspective, if he doesn't involve too much politics, just in a bracket, but he's brilliant. I love him. I also love Maurice Fernandez. And that's why I invite these people for interviews, because I know I can learn something from them, you know. So I'm only going to bring people onto my channel I kind of admire and love, you know, in a certain way. Okay, but anyway, so let's go back to Neptune and Jupiter. Make sure you pay attention. I mean, you watch out who you put your faith into, because there are going to be, Neptune and Jupiter is one of the how is it called? Kind of like the social media influencer combo. There is going to be loads out there. Okay, great. And then the question you're going to have to ask about it is that what's real and what's not real? It's about tapping into different dimensions. Probably the artificial intelligence is going to be blooming significantly. And yeah, probably there is going to be applications, and you're going to have this headset in your ear, and then it automatically translates what a foreign person is telling you, kind of. Virtual reality, well, that's very Neptune Jupiter. No wonder Facebook or Meta or whatever it's called now has started this recently. It's going to be blooming significantly. What I kind of imagine is what we saw in the 90s in the film. There is going to be an ideal world, and then we want to switch off, and then I'm going to put on this headset or these goggles and stuff like that. And then, you know, it's kind of the alterification, that's a word, right? The alterification of the mind by creating the spiritual experience. I think this is going to be huge in the next 10 years. Whether it's good or not, you know, it's an element of an escapism. So I'm not too sure about how good it would be, but probably it's better than, for instance, having plenty of alcohol addicts, which Neptune and Jupiter could talk about alcohol consumption. So therefore, alcohol business is going to be growing significantly, in my opinion. There are going to be more pubs, more clubs coming up eventually, and they're going to make good money. And probably the tax is going to be quite huge on alcohol as well anyway, as well as tobacco, cigarettes, and so forth. We're going to see those type of things. As I mentioned, I think there is going to be more victimized people, more people like deceived and frauded, or yeah, and then we're going to see an element of a poorness as well. So people are going to make their own luck, plenty, but I kind of feel like this gap between the rich and the poor might get a little bit bigger, unfortunately. Natural disasters, floods, inflation is going to go further. I think the gas and oil prices will definitely go up even more. This is something I predicted last year, and I recommend it to people to invest into oil and gas matters because it's going to make money. Look at the prices now. And it's going to go further up, I'm very sure, because there is going to be a shortage of it, in a sense. It could really talk about something around the wild nature. So the extinction of animal groups going to happen, unless they're going to come up with some creative ways of kind of keeping them alive. But there is going to be movements around how to save the world, how to save the wild animals, how to save the fishes in the ocean, and all those type of things. There is going to be a lot more charitable movements going on. And probably this is going to be one of the ways how people will try to scam money through charitable programs. Be mindful about it. Neptune-Jupiter cycle, unfortunately, can talk about famine. We're going to have food supply issues. I also have been saying it for a few years now, that I think people should be having their own garden. They should have a land, and they should grow their own vegetables and have animals around. We're going to have issues with food, as in food supply. And whether it's because it's going to be hard to deliver them, or whether it's because God knows the prices will go up so much and then we can't afford it. But I think there is going to be food issues. People will be more emotional, more sentimental. Neptune rules sentimentality. So you're going to hear from people, oh, I wish it was the communism again, or I don't know, it would be Obama again, or that was better. And maybe it was better, I don't know. And I know Hungary does that. And by the way, Hungary does have, I think, Neptune on the rising sign. And Hungary tends to live in the past, and they say, oh, I wish it was the communism. It was a lot better. But at that time, they were complaining about it. So, you know, it's kind of never being satisfied in a sense. And then what happens is those people who live in the past never going to move forward, because what Hungarian people do in many cases, that, oh, because at that time it was only 3 penny for a loaf of bread, and look at it now, it's God knows how much. It's $5. True. Okay, but you know, are you going to be wallowing in your pain, Neptune, or are you going to go and find an opportunity to make a better life for yourself? And that's Jupiter. Jupiter is about finding the meaning of your own life. Jupiter is a star maker. Okay, so you can become your own star, or you can help others to become a star. Very possible. And then you won't have anything, because those people will forget about you. Okay, so watch out who you help. Probably the voting system will change quite a lot. And what I can imagine, either the voting system will change, or we're going to be voting for an image rather than a fact. So whatever people are going to be portraying, that's what we're going to go for. There was a, sorry, but I had to giggle because there was this, there was a voting going on in Hungary last week. I looked at with Horary who is going to win. It was obvious who was going to win. I knew that. I listened to some interviews, and then they asked one person, why did you vote for this person? And it was no discrimination whatsoever, but it was a gypsy guy. And he was like, well, if this prime minister is good for the king of the gypsies, then it's good for me too. And they asked him, do you know who was the opponent? Did you check whether they were good or not? I don't even know who they are, he replied. So he went for an image. So Jupiter and Neptunian type of character. Okay. Jupiter and Neptune actually is scandals also. So we're going to see plenty of scandals in the world. I think typically about financials, thefts, where certain type of taxation go in and all these type of things. There is going to be plenty of soapy stories on Facebook. You're going to see your friends complaining. You're going to see save this animal video. There is hunger going on here. Please donate. All those type of things. Oh, by the way, if you would like to donate for the webinar, you can do that on my website. Thank you. That was the free marketing here. Probably, hopefully, there is going to be more addiction groups, support groups coming up for people, and I think that's a good stuff. Probably, as I said, regulation around tobacco, alcohol, drugs. Maybe there are going to be dedicated shops where you can actually do that. Okay, so I don't know, and then maybe there needs to be a veil on it, Neptune, or a dark window. Okay, and then something like that. I can imagine. Actually, it's been going on in Hungary Maybe I should be checking when it started. I would not be shocked if it started in 2009, which would be a Neptune-Jupiter thing, but I'm not too sure. Tobacco shop rule in Hungary. Now I'm very curious, so sorry, but I have to check. Maybe it was sometimes in 2009. Maybe here. Sorry, I think 2008. 2008. So just right before the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. Not a shock for me, okay? There is going to be plenty of exposure of secrets that has not been shared in a proper manner before. So some of the lies will get spotlighted. And I think it's going to start actually this month with this full moon in Libra, which is actually having a T-square with Aries, Pluto, Humea getting involved there, Speaker, which is the fixed star of truth. Anyway, I will be posting a video about that when we get a little bit closer in a few days' time. I've already put together my thoughts on it. I think there is going to be the rise of numerology. I think there is going to be biological improvements going on. I think dream interpretations and kind of like, as I said, brainstorming and brain control is going to kind of improve quite a lot. Probably there is going to be a kind of like a system of speaking on other people's, on animals' language. So maybe people are going to be able to talk to animals. It's going to be somehow emphasized. Probably there's going to be plenty of discoveries about dreams and maybe something to do with the RAM memory, and then more discoveries around that. I think dreams as divination tool, I think it's going to appear quite a lot. Probably something to do with sound healing, probably going to be typical. I can very much imagine that further spiritual books will be found and they are going to get translated. I think I would need to start, I would need to check that one too. I'm not going to do that. The last, one of the conjunctions between Neptune and Jupiter was in 1998. And that was in the sign of Sagittarius, I reckon. No, it was in Capricorn, sorry. Anyway, that's when they started, that was around the time when they started translating some of the Valence books. And that's why things like the concept of sect, profection, zodiacal releasing, it was Robert Hand, Chris Brennan, and one more Robert who started translating these books. Very Neptune, Jupiter in a sense, especially in Capricorn, by the way, because that's something to do with ancient rules overall. I think the paranormal activities will be increasing quite a lot. Maybe there is going to be something around UFOs and stuff like that. I can really imagine. I'm not going to go through here, but just summarize some of the, I'm going to come on to that anyway. Some of the positives and the negatives on a personal level. Trusting your instincts, improve your intuition, be ready to sacrifice, be ready to forgive, be ready to love others, give more to your environment, be a part of a charity, something which is trustworthy, of course. Probably there is going to be a lot more retreats. Go for a retreat. So hopefully you're going to choose my retreat. I'm planning to do one sometimes in August. Be ready to, let's say, replace oil and gas with something else. these things are going to be important. Some people, I'm not going to go into the affirmation quite a lot, but this is an aspect of affirmation as well. Some people are wanting to hear goodies and feedback about them. And with this Neptune Jupiter, we need to think positively. We need to find the best things in the worst case scenario as well. We need to be looking at why bad things are happening to us, because there is a message behind it. Okay. It's about calibrating the brain, knowing that the brain can actually change the waves around it. Extremely important. Yes. Now, Pisces energy, think about it's a mutable water, which talks about boundless emotions. Probably, as in Neptune, oceans and seas, the mutable energy kind of indicates that it's changing, changeable. So that's why I kind of believe there is going to be more water disaster. Maybe Titanics will be found. You know, that could be one of the predictions we can make here. Or maybe we're going to find more shipwrecks overall. Maybe we're going to be discovering a lost city and a lost town. And then we're going to kind of get to know a little bit more about different type of civilizations. Okay. For me, Neptune and Jupiter is a little bit like the mermaid aspect. How does the mermaid look like? Does it look like nice or does it look like ugly? You know, you kind of never know. Pollution, water pollution. Probably we should be expecting that an oil rig is gonna kind of cause some type of damage or something like that. It's very important that, Neptune and Jupiter, it's about star making, singers. There are going to be talent shows, not necessarily just around singing, but probably there could be something around creativity, like bakery, cooking shows, talent shows, all these type of things that I think they're going to kind of flood Netflix and the televisions and so forth. Reality shows, they're going to come back onto the picture shortly. One of the recommendations I kind of would like to make, that I think you should have water filters at home. Kind of install a water filter into your home, because I think we're going to have problems with water. Some parts of the world is going to run, going to have water supply issues because of the global warming and all those type of things. And some places, I think there is going to be problem with the cleanliness of water. Think about Neptune as ruling smokes and fogs and smokes in a sense. So it kind of indicates to me that there is a possibility that there's going to be a bigger problem with one of these big like factory or whatever, and somehow it's going to, you know, something it's going to bring in like some pollutions overall. One advice I would like to give on a personal basis: stop over fantasizing with these transits, because it's very easy. Take action. Okay, probably it's going to bring in some more sophisticated goggles. Probably the glasses industry will kind of change as well. Neptune rules alongside with the moon, by the way, but it rules mirrors. So the glass is something which is helping you to see better, seeing beyond as well. So some sophisticated goggles, which is bringing the alternative reality in a sense. Fake money-based cults will be exposed, I said, and Neptune rules predictions also. So that's why the clairvoyance, I think it's going to be kind of growing very significantly. So now, before we move on to the chart of the US, I wanted to kind of show you some of the industries which I think will bloom quite a lot. Oil, pharmaceutical, dance, football, cosmetics, alcohol, shipping, health industry, marine biology. Sorry about that. Can I ask everyone to make sure to keep muted, please? Because it's just not nice that I have to always unmute someone. Okay, so fishing, cleaning, ice skating, glasses, yachts, advertising. These fields, I think, will be blooming. There is additional fields which I kind of would like to mention here. Shoes, leggings, that's Neptunian topics. From a spiritual perspective, I think it could be hypnotherapy, really a tarot reading, healing, dream interpretation, crystals, chakras, astral travels, astrocartography readings will be a lot more important. And this is one of the reasons why I'm going to put together a 6 or 8 weeks astrocartography training, where I'm going to be looking at local space, midpoint astrocartography, lines, and so forth, the different types of them. Psychology, channeling, photographs, cinema industry. But be careful because there's going to be plenty of fake products. So it looks like Gucci and it's not Gucci. And then you pay the same amount of money just like it was Gucci. Those type of things. I think these industries will be blooming significantly. Some of the further predictions I kind of made here is that I think something is going to happen to the Pope. Either the Pope is going to resign, die, or a change of the Pope. And probably I'm expecting that in the next 3 years. I can actually imagine some type of public announcement saying sorry, or this could be a politician as well, by the way, a public figure who is going to admit doing something wrong. Probably there's going to be a new spiritual movement, a new topic, which is going to kind of, you know, spread significantly. It's like what I've, let's say in Lada's channel, when I first talked about perfection. Now everyone talks about perfection. I'm not suggesting, by the way, that I introduce perfection, because that's not the case. But you know, something like that, which people we're gonna start talking about. Probably we're gonna explore the seas a lot more. We're gonna be able to go deeper, and we're gonna be discovering new species. Possibly there is gonna be in the next 13 years, one of the islands can be in a huge danger. And I kind of believe that's why there's going to be some mass migration, because people will leave. It might be flood, it might be ice problems, but something around it. But also some of the islands will gain independency. Now, hopefully, I mean, I'm talking about islands like any islands who belong to someone and then they kind of want to go independent. Like maybe in Europe, Cyprus. Somehow Cyprus is gonna gain a little bit of an independency from the Turkish Empire, or some bits and bobs like that. I kind of imagine with Neptune and Jupiter. Hopefully there is gonna be a new psychic show on Netflix. Maybe and like an astrology related like a predictive type of show, or maybe there is going to be a competition looking for the best astrologer in the world, and then people are going to be applying to it. These type of things I can really imagine, like an astrology reality show. If someone wants to organize one and then take it to Netflix because you've got the power, do not forget to invite me, please. Thank you. So something like that, I can really, really imagine. Okay, so let's just have a look at some of your comments before we move forward. So, do you incorporate Nikola Stoyanovich degree theory in your teachings? No. I use a different degree theory, and that's from the 17th century called Moran. And I use that degree theory. Actually, the beauty of astrology is in its cycles, I guess, which is logical to me. Okay. I think that's a beautiful combination you have. Okay, you sound like my Hungarian husband. Hoo-ha! Yeah. Nice timing, Victor. Thank you. Wow, I just pictured. Hold on. Someone needs to unmute themselves, please. I pictured a Neom city in Saudi Arabia, which is a construction right now. Okay, hopefully. Dionysus, we're going to speak about that. I want to join your retreat. I will announce it in a few weeks' time. Yes, Victor, yes, water filters. And therefore, a water filter business could be a good one. Some of you need to think about, do I want to do installation and so forth? I can really imagine that blooming in the next 1 decade. Hi, Lefki. Going to aim for buying a yacht. Yeah, dance music, healing with colors, shapes, and forms. I can really imagine solar panels, solar flares. There is an astrologer dating show on Netflix. Oh, wow, I have to check. I never knew that. Going back to 25, slide 25, briefly. I'm going to go back in a second. In reference to Hungary, yes. Oh, yeah, they're complaining, and yeah, I know what you mean. Slide 25. The affirmations. Great. So it's time to look at the chart of the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. So that's what we're going to spend a little bit of a time on. And I'm going to introduce a couple of asteroids, fixed stars, and centaurs, because they might be very prominent in the chart. And I'm going to do that kind of, I mean, here is the time when it's going to be happening. You can see it's on 23 degree 58, 59 minutes, depending on where you are. And one thing which I would like to mention is that it's bang on opposing US Neptune. And Neptune in the US chart is in the sign of Virgo. How I see that is that Neptune in Virgo is very much about the spiritual energy, which is filtered through Virgo. So kind of like discrimination, being critical, being very analytic, maybe a little bit judgmental towards those type of things and so forth. So that's why I kind of believe that there is going to be a movement, a little bit of a witch hunting going on. And maybe it's starting somehow in US. But I also believe this is the aspect of skepticism overall in the US about home environment, about work and life balance, because this is something which is going to be happening in the 4th and the 10th house. This is the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction chart, not the US one. But it happens in the 4th house. I think I put a chart somewhere also. The Neptune wanted to. No, that's the discovery chart. No, I didn't. Sorry about that. But it happens in the 4th and the 10th house. I kind of believe this is going to be talking about the work and life balance there in the US, and probably how many holidays we have. Hopefully they're going to increase the number of holidays rather than taking away. But I think it's going to bring in things around how many hours we work a day, how many days we should be working a week. And I think there is going to be certain type of regulations coming up in the US around that and so forth. But fourth house is something to do with the lands. How you sell your land? Can you sell a land to foreigners? Can a foreigner buy a land? These type of topics I can really imagine with Neptune, Jupiter opposing Neptune in the US chart. I think it could talk about mass migration, how to kind of minimize that, stop that, how to how to make the visa matters a little bit stricter, and so forth. I kind of because it's Virgo, there is an element of a discrimination going on here. You know, maybe certain type of countries cannot travel here and there, cannot relocate here and there. Maybe it's in a shady way, maybe it's a direct way, but I think there is going to be an element of a discrimination going on, unfortunately. Actually, this could indicate that the number of cases of COVID in the US will be increasing significantly. This could really talk about that the political shame and political lies and political misleading and fraud is going to get exposed. In US. Now, sometimes people, oh, can you look at, I don't know, Brazil? Can you look at Australia? I wish I had all the time in the world. I don't. But I tend to be looking at US, China, and Russia quite often, because I kind of feel like these are the world powers, and then whatever happens there, it's going to be affecting the rest of the world anyway. So we need to be looking into these three countries. Today, I only picked US because it's a long material anyway. Now, so that's what I'm kind of expecting somehow in the US. Now, in the not discovery chart, sorry, the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction chart, what you see is, you don't see it, but I tell you, that actually Neptune-Jupiter conjuncts Zeus, Okrewe, and Markab. So I wanted to talk about those a little bit for you. Zeus is an asteroid. Its number is 5731. Okay. If you want to be looking up your own chart, and then you can do that. Go on astro.com. Astro.com, and then I want to show you, because sometimes this is going to be actually very smart to look at. Maybe we're gonna bring up a chart, whatever chart, that's fine. Okay, and you scroll down and then you enter here in the manual part 5731, and it's gonna show you where your Zeus asteroid is. Now, and then you scroll down and then you will be able to see that, for instance, this person has got a conjunction to the sun. This person was born to be a leader of a community. That's exactly what I told her today. So Zeus is about leadership, about ambition. Zeus was someone who shaped the world. It was the most feared god of all. It was kind of strict, but it was the most feared. Everyone was afraid of him. It actually represents lightning, natural catastrophes. He was so convincing towards others that everyone followed him, no matter what, even his own children who hated him. It's about maintaining power. And by the way, in psychology, both Freud and Jung says that the lightning is a phallic symbol. So something to do with masculinity, something to do with sexual matters. So these are the meanings of Zeus. So Jupiter and Neptune, it kind of talks about who is the real leader. Is this person the leader, or that one is the leader? We can get confused around it, or there could be some type of truth coming around from a leadership position point of view. We can see the real ambition of the person, what the aim was with that. And as you can see, the keywords there, they are speaking for themselves. Natural catastrophes, all the lies, what is going on in the political world, and how they're going to try to convince you about their own truth. And probably there is going to be some sexual scandals coming around with this conjunction also. But this is also about the start of a new world. But I think the new world is only going to start between 2026 to 2028. Also, we've got this asteroid going on there as well, Okiroe, which is 52872, its astrological number. And that talks about a child, that was actually the child of Chiron and Chariklo. So there is an element of a healing energy going on with this. This child had the gift of prophecy, but actually he was punished for him saying out loud some of his prophecies. One of the prediction she made, actually, it's a she, sorry. One of the predictions she made that there is going to be someone who's going to take away the kingdom from Zeus, and potentially they're going to try to kill him. And Zeus punished her for this divination, because the humankind should not have known about it. Well, this is exactly whatever the mythology says. This is exactly what I'm expecting. That's why I kind of was like, there is going to be witch hunting going on, restrictions around spiritual people, and so forth. Yeah, just like the punishment for revealing secrets, probably someone's head is going to get chopped, because there is going to be some reveal going on, maybe about a politician, maybe about the Pope, maybe about some hierarchy figures. By the way, this Neptune-Jupiter could talk about a death of a very, very influential person, which is kind of going to shock the world overall. When can that happen? Maybe when Mars actually hits the Neptune-Jupiter conjunction degree, which is going to be happening in what, 7 weeks time, 6 weeks time, 5 to be precise. Or this could also happen when Saturn hits that point, but that's only going to be happening in 2 years time. But this could talk about losing kind of a very important person. Now the conjunction actually could talk about the birth of a Messiah. So someone who is coming to kind of rescue us. And at the beginning, we're going to hate that person. That's not going to be a good person, because everyone is going to be suspicious of them. But eventually in 13 years time, we might see a different type of world. But people will get punished for certain type of things, surely. And then we've got Markab, which is a fixed star. And that's not a nice fixed star, let me be honest. It talks about making bad judgments. It talks about a violent death. So probably there is going to be a attempt of killing a very important person. Again, it might be a singer, a politician, or maybe it's just a suicide of a singer or actor or actress or whatever it is. But Markab really talks about danger from fever, cuts, blows, stabs, and fire. This could talk about a huge fire somewhere in the world. One of the ways how we can work with this energy, that what we do is, I haven't looked at it, to be honest. Maybe I should have. Here you go. What I can do is I can put this chart onto the world map, and then we can see where the Neptune-Jupiter energy is blooming the most. I haven't looked at it, to be frank. Maybe I should have. I just did not think about that significantly. And then we might be able to see some of these energies. And you can see that Neptune Jupiter is going through here, Mexico, United States, Canada. How interesting that the last Neptune Jupiter conjunction brought oil rig breakdown in Mexico. So it goes through in US on the map, but of course there are other bits and bobs somewhere, I'm sure. Well, there is some going on here. Well, that's ocean really. So, but we've got that's ocean really, but we've got Antarctica going on here though, getting affected. We've got some South Africa. How interesting. I mean, not South Africa, but Africa. How interesting that in 2009, they were one of the first one claiming that there is a recession going on. Well, somehow history seems to be repeating itself. Okay, so we can do this, and there is another way as well to do that, but I'm not going to spend time on that now. Because I would need to do some other bits, and I forgot to kind of work with this. So, but yeah, these are not nice energies around that Neptune and Jupiter, and that's why, again, I'm not so keen on this chart much. So these are some of the stuff. Now, I also looked at the US chart, which it looks like I forgot to put them on the slides. But a couple of things which I noticed in the US chart, that Dionysus actually conjuncts the rising sign there. And Dionysus is very much about madness, very much about alcohol issues, but also it talks about free expressions and kind of like the feeling of being so drunk that we don't give a shit about what we say. We do certain things which we might regret later on. So kind of, I'm just talking about maybe a little bit of a censorship, I can imagine, with this. We'll see how it plays out, but the restriction of, maybe it's just banning certain type of social media things, but we should be expecting those type of elements. Okay, so we looked at, guys, the worldly stuff. So we should be looking at your personal stuff. Now, you have a chance to actually now ask some questions. Markup, conjunct natal markup, that's always going to be the case because that's a fixed star. It's only moving 1 degree every 72 years. So that's normal. It's important when it's actually in conjunction to any other planets. So guys, now you've got a little bit of a chance to ask questions. Was something not clear? Then shoot them your questions. And before we go into the personal stuff. The homes are threatened by the government. Well, 4th and 10th house, you know, not a shock with this Neptune Jupiter, not a shock. Thank you, Christine, for being here. When do you think the real epidemic will take place? Maybe a lot later on. I'm kind of optimistic that this pandemic, I think maybe it's going to happen at the end of the year again, but then after we've finished. The conjunction took place, it depends on where you are, really. So in New York, and I mean in New York time, the conjunction took place, to be precise, exactly 1:03 p.m. Okay, so it depends where you are. And then you can calculate it from that. Can you talk about Zeus in the different houses? I'm sorry, Stephanie, definitely not. Then we would be sitting here for additional 2 hours. No way I can do that, sorry. The electric crooked phallus. The Queen. I'm not gonna go into names because I don't want the Interpol to come and get me because I'm making these names, so I wouldn't say that. Have a good work, Wendy. And there was a pandemic there in Mexico, okay, through Bulgaria too and Greece. Swine flu, okay. Everything is conjunct my sun. How can it affect Aquarius rising? We will talk about the individual charts. Could you all more on Dionysus? That's all really what you need to kind of, it's drunkenness. So it could really talk about alcohol problems, for instance, in a family. But it could talk about just kind of being hungry for something, a little bit of an obsession, addiction type of things. It depends where it is in the chart, really. But it's about saying out loud what we believe and then we regret later on. Can Jupiter Neptune conjunction in the 8th house Pisces indicate a lottery win? It could. But we're gonna come on to the personal ones. French election at some point, maybe. Do you do one-to-one astrology courses? Unfortunately, I don't have time for that. I'm teaching 3 times a week already, and I do 3-4 clients a day, every day, non-stop. So I cannot take on one-on-ones, unfortunately. However, I do have memberships where I provide free astrological courses or talks about certain type of topics a month, and it costs about $45 or something like that. You will get the recording. Sometimes it's going to be uploaded on the website, so wherever you registered, that's where you will get the recording. Can you give an example of Neptune and Jupiter phase, how it relates to work? I'm not sure how to calculate it. Mine are in the 9th and 10th house. A phase lasts for 45 degrees, so you're always going to have to count it from whether Jupiter is ahead in zodiacal signs from Neptune or not. And every 45 degrees, it's a different phase. And there are 8 phases. So that's what I kind of would mention about that now. One of those, a variant or a rise in infection, it's very possible. I think it's going to be probably both, really. One more time, personal charts. We're going to come on to that, and I'm going to give you some ideas. Thank you, Christian. They are really pushing the upcoming birth through. Just today, this conjunction 4th house. Could you make a video on your top 10 asteroids? Yeah, I can do that. I see you're using solar fire. No, I use Sirius as well, but I've got some issues with them at the moment, so I haven't used it. Okay, so let's move on to your personal charts. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're going to be looking at your personal charts, because I think there are 70 odd people online. So I'm going to give you some ideas about how I think you should be working with your personal chart. Firstly, you might want to be asking yourself the question, do I have got any planets around 21 to 25 degrees, but the hot degrees are going to be 23 and 24. I would like you to be very strict with these degrees. And one of the reasons is because Neptune moves very slowly. Okay, it kind of moves 2 degrees a year. So therefore, if you have got it on 25, you know, it might not be affecting it. However, Neptune this year will get to 26 degrees. It's going to kind of, you know, kind of be fast in a sense, but it's going to go retrograde October, November, so it's going to go backwards. Does it trigger any of your natal planets? And I think the orb you should be given is about 5 degrees, 5, maximum 6 degrees. And what is that planet, and what does that planet rule in your natal chart? So for instance, this Neptune-Jupiter conjunction happens in my 1st house, exactly on my rising sign. But let's suppose I had the rising sign, I had Venus on the rising sign also. So I would be looking at what Venus rules in the chart, what houses. It might rule the 3rd house and it might rule the 8th house. So somehow those topics will be merged together with the 1st house. So for instance, the 1st house is the body, 8th house is the transition of the body. So maybe the person is going to be dreaming about how to transform their own body. Okay. This is one of the ways how you can actually put it together. And also, you should be looking at what is the essential meaning of the planet. Just a second. Caramel, fejezd be. Sorry, my doggy, I think, wants to go outside because we usually go around 8 o'clock and the time is coming up. So he's telling me, come on, Daddy, finish because we need to go outside. So, but that's not going to happen yet. Okay, and then you're going to want to look at the essential meanings of the planet with which it gets triggered also. I recommend looking at the 7 traditional planets, especially because the outer planets going to talk about more the society, how it changes and how it affects you. So these would be the steps I kind of recommend looking at. And instead of signs, I wanted to write houses. Yeah, not signs, because we all know that it's in the sign of Pisces. These are the steps I would like you to kind of follow. Now, who will be impacted the most? I think the most is going to be affected Pisces and Virgo, because when we look at the hierarchy of the aspects, conjunction is always the most important, followed by the opposition. So the number one people who are affected is Pisces and then Virgo, followed by the square elements, which is going to be Sagittarius, Gemini, and that's it, Sagittarius and Gemini. And last but not least, or actually the trine people can be activated also, which is going to be the water element, so the Scorpio and Cancer. But trine is very much about opportunities. If you walk past, nothing is going to happen. So you might not feel it, you might feel it if you are an opportunist. So that's why you're going to have to decide, especially water people, whether you are an achiever or a dreamer. Okay. And last but not least, actually, Capricorn and Taurus could be affected as well, because that's going to be the sextile, but that's the least important out of these 5. Okay. So ideally, I would like you to look at, do you have any planets going on? Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini, and Pisces. Those are the number ones because those are going to kick your butts overall. Now, a little bit of a practical tip here. Let's suppose that you've got a planet on Scorpio 23 degree, and then you've got a planet in 23 degree of Cancer. And let's say it's a, I don't know, a Moon, Mars trine. So therefore, Neptune and Jupiter are going to trigger those two, but the Moon and Mars needs to work together. Maybe it's about fighting for the body, right? Or fighting for motherhood, fighting for children, or whatever it kind of indicates. So that topic is kind of merging, and maybe Neptune, Jupiter is going to tell you to believe in those. So this is how you should be actually looking up some of your charts. Great. One more thing which you should be looking at, and that's where there is a little bit of a difficulty. You need to look at where Jupiter and Neptune come from, what houses they are coming from in your natal chart. So what I exactly mean by that is that, let me bring up my natal chart, and then I just walk you through on some of these steps so we learn from it. The first step is we're going to be looking at, okay, where does this energy kind of happen? So it's going to be happening in the 1st house. It's not my relocated chart, but it's my, anyway. So it's going to be happening in the 1st house, okay? So it's something to do with the ideas and how to achieve maybe body matters, or how we want to be more visible in the world. Okay. And maybe let's suppose it's triggering my Mars. Okay, just let's suppose. It's not, but let's suppose. So I'm going to be looking at, okay, Mars is ruling the 2nd house and it's ruling the 9th house. So either I'm dreaming about a perfect money and I'm going to spend money on it, or I'm dreaming about living in a perfect place. So it might talk about relocation. So you can actually put these keywords somehow together. Okay. But you're going to have to look at where, especially Jupiter and Neptune comes from, especially Jupiter. Jupiter comes from the 10th house. So Jupiter has got this work mindset somehow. So somehow, whatever it is, it's work. Maybe working on the body, maybe working on being more visible and earn more money, maybe relocating to a place where we can earn more money. But somehow, there is an element of work, profession, and all those type of things are involved here. So, yeah. Yes, my answer to your question is I do look at my relocated chart. I don't live by it, but I do look at it. And yeah, it's working. So I tend to be looking at both. Okay. And there is a 3rd chart, which I tend to be looking at, and that's my psychological chart. But I'm not going to go into that today because that would be way too much. But I held a presentation about that a couple of weeks ago. Its title is The Decans and the Dwarves. So you can check that out. Okay, so hope that makes sense. So let's just move on. This is how you're going to get affected. So we're going to start some of the rising signs. I just put a couple of keywords because I wanted to make you think about these things rather than me telling you that someone is going to die in your family. Okay, I want you to think about it a little bit. So Aries rising sign means that this conjunction is taking place in your 12th house. And some of the things you're going to have to think about is that what can you imagine for yourself for the future? What would the future look like if you didn't have any fears and then you were not suffering? Are you focused way too much on the suffering, or are you able to release whatever you're suffering from? And that's why you need to look at where Jupiter and Neptune comes from, because maybe Neptune is the suffering. Where does that come from? Does that come from your 7th house? How I'm going to release that? How I'm going to find a solution for that? Maybe it comes from your 5th house. I'm unable to get pregnant, or my child is suffering. How I'm going to find a solution for that? Are you focused way too much on your suffering, or are you going to take action about it and then sort this out? This could really talk about having your own vision board. And do you know what you want to achieve, or you just lingering around and I have no clue where my life is heading towards to, and I kind of feel lost? Or I'm actually going to be very precise about it, Virgo, right? We need the Virgo, that I'm going to be practical, and I'm going to put on a notepad that I want $10,000 by the end of the year. Very important to be realistic. Okay, realistic, because someone asked, can I win on the lottery? You can in the 8th house, but are you realistic about it? Right? So why don't you ask for, can I somehow make 10,000 extra dollars more than last year? And then you are already on a winning mindset. And that's the Jupiter and Neptune, a winning mindset. So Aries rising, do you have a winning mindset? Do you need to release some of the worldly orders and then you want to be working on your own? Do you actually have to work for others? Do you have to suffer in a work environment which you hate? Are you fed up with some of your mundane responsibilities and you want to be escaping from the reality for a short while? It could talk about, you know what, I've been dreaming about going for a retreat. I cannot afford it. So then make a way to afford it, because that's gonna push your, it's gonna give you ideas to grow further. And maybe I don't want to pick up anyone's dirty socks anymore. I'm fed up of it. Then it's about scheduling some downtimes for yourself, because you've got the right to rest. You've got the right to go on a holiday. You've got the right to be on your own and meditate and do things which you actually enjoy doing. An element of a fun as well. These some of the questions which is going to come up for Aries rising sign. Okay. There is a lot of talking about being realistic, but at the same time, energies of not thinking big enough. Think big enough, but what I'm trying to say about it is that, let's say your business is doing currently $20,000 a year, and then your dream is that I'm gonna make $1 million a year next, and that's what I wish for. Well, why don't we just double it? And let's say I want to make 40 or 60,000 this year instead of 20, because that's more realistic. Okay, so we should not become greedy. We want to grow, but make that growth gradual from year to year. And maybe in 13 years time, you want to make, I don't know, 300,000 a year. Okay, something like that. That's how I mean this realistic, but at the same time, think big enough as well. Now, for those who are maybe a little bit more on the pessimistic side, and that could be the Neptunian energy. You know, what it means kind of is that, oh, I just want to make $5 extra, you know, a month. Well, is that big enough? Probably not. So, you know, that's how I mean this being real about it. Taurus rising sign. So it's going to be happening in your 11th house, which is about friends, the society, the helpers in our life, social change, just a couple of meanings about it. But it's about how am I going to get into the public eye? How am I going to share my visions with others? How am I going to create kind of like a like-minded group where people are having the same ideas like I have? It's very much about being a part of a group that shares the same vision. If you don't want to create your own group, then be a part of it. It's about looking at what my long-term goals are and then how I'm going to achieve those. What did you want to become when you were a child? Maybe you have to revisit those topics. It's about reconnecting with supporters and friends in your life who is going to kind of put you on the right road. And maybe also about letting go some of the friends who are actually holding you back. Maybe because they are telling you that, oh, come on, you as a tarot reader, ha ha. Is that really a friend? Maybe not so much. So do I need certain type of people? Can I actually shine among others? And who is allowing me to shine? Who's supporting me? Who is holding me back? But also it's about allowing yourself to earn money, because this is a money house. This is about earnings from the work. So do I actually charge enough money for the services I do, or do I not? Do I want to increase a little bit of the prices maybe? Do I care way too much about what other people think? Because a Taurus rising gonna have to learn to kind of shrug this off their own shoulder. A Gemini rising. It's gonna be happening in the 10th house. Probably we need loads of Gemini rising people who are ready to learn, but at the same time ready to share their knowledge with others also. It's about not being an eternal student. It's about being a student as well as teaching others about spiritual matters, and kind of admitting that, you know what, I'm on a spiritual journey, I'm still studying, but I want to share what I've got to share with you. But also it could talk about, are you a dreamer or an achiever when it comes to your career goals? Are you satisfied with your profession? Do you actually have a work, a job, or do you have a profession? Because the two things are not the same. You might feel lost that I don't know what my career aspiration is. What shall I do? I might feel that I have to sacrifice either my family life or my professional life in order for the other to grow. Maybe my husband doesn't want me to work as much. Maybe the kids are screaming at home and I'm not focusing on my work as much. And this is telling you that you have got the right to have a business. You have got the right to pursue your career dreams. Just find the balance, work-life balance somehow. And what type of attachments do you have around work? Maybe actually you should be changing a job because it's not working anymore. What is your ideal job? What is your heart's desire? These are some of the questions, if I were a Gemini, I would ask myself. It could talk about in what ways am I going to be shaping my reputation? Am I going to be the illusionist or am I going to be the teacher with that? Cancer rising sign. So this is going to be happening in your 9th house. Do you want to study something spiritual? Because it's high time then. Do you want to get in touch with your higher self? Do you actually tie up your knowledge with some university knowledge, such as, oh, I'm only allowed to share my viewpoint on spiritual matters if I studied spirituality? Well, you know, it's good to study, but you've got the right to actually say out loud your own opinion. You've got the right to experience different spiritual realms. You have got the right to meet a guru who is going to support you on the right road. Are you choosing the right guru or are you going to be scammed? If you had a choice, let's say 20 years ago, what would you have studied? Why don't you start now? What is your dream country? Do you want to relocate? Do so. These are some of the topics you're going to have to think about with Neptune and Jupiter, because you do have got the right to relocate. Leo rising sign, it's going to be happening in your 8th house. So what would the future look like if you didn't have to deal with your own demons, your fears? Would it be better? What are those fears which you don't let go? Is that financial attachment and you don't take a risk? Well, I'm not saying that you should be jumping into every single opportunity. Do the Mercurian part where you're going to analyze your financials. You're going to look at, you know, is it worth it? Is it not? You're going to collect enough data before you make the decision, but make a decision about it. Do you trust others that they are here to help you, or do you think that they are here to catch you out? Do you trust the universe, that the universe has got your back and it gives you the right resources you need? Do you can you create a future where you are not going to be dependent on other people's money, in a sense? It can be your husband, it can be your parent, it can be banks, it can be whatever. You know, it might be about clearing out all the debts you have. How am I going to do that? It's about bonds. So it's about sexuality as well, in a certain sense. So it really talks about that I've got the right to tell my partner that I don't like that position. So, you know, you should be doing it in a different way. But also, can you be honest with yourself? Or are you lying to yourself about something? Maybe we should be looking at why I'm attracting certain type of people, especially if you are single and you are not happy in your relationship. Because the 8th house is kind of like the natural attraction of kind of partnerships. Like maybe some people are attracted to bad guys, you know. So what type of people you tend to be attracting? That's an 8th house topic. What is their spiritual message? Why do we repeat the same patterns? Are you ready to be doing some psychological and spiritual research overall? Maybe it's about communicating with the dead. Maybe you want to be listening to your ancestry line a little bit. Maybe you want to do a little bit of a research in your ancestry line. Why are we making the same mistakes through generations? You should be actually looking at that too. Virgo, it's going to be happening in your 7th house. Well, do you have a partner? Do you not have a partner? If you have a partner, is that relationship working? Can we sit down next to each other without talking? Can I understand my partner? Can I resonate with my partner? Can I trust my partner? Or I am single. Why am I single? Why am I not attracting the right person? Probably, maybe there is a control issue which we need to let go of. Firstly, maybe I'm trying to contain my emotions. Maybe I'm just against my own happiness for some reason. Maybe I'm working way too much. Maybe I've got OCD. Something needs to be let go so that a new partner can actually come in. Maybe I need a spiritual reading. Maybe I need a kind of just a spiritual retreat as well about tantra or sex or relationship therapies. Finding the root cause of why I'm single still for decades. But if you are in a relationship, you have got every single right to be admired, to be cherished, to be looked up to live up to your own expectations also. Does your partner hold you back somehow in your spiritual development? Is this the right person? Can we actually put the relationship into a new foundation? These are some of the, what would life be like if I had a partner, if I had the perfect partner? But Neptune connects to perfectionism, and Jupiter can overdo that. So pay attention how much expectation you have got towards your partner. Can I place myself into the partner's shoes and understanding where they're coming from? So there is an element of a spiritual understanding in the relationship. Libra, going to be happening in your 6th house. Well, what would be the life look like if you practice spirituality on an everyday level? I'm going to meditate from now on every single day. I'm going to do, I don't know, 1 reading a day, and I'm not 10, for instance. Or what would your health be like if you kind of find the root cause of your own illness? Because I'm struggling for a while and, you know, doctors cannot find the problem. Let's look at the root cause of that problem. And then maybe we don't need this illness anymore. So it's kind of talking about the spiritual cleansing in a sense. Maybe I over spiritualize things and then I need to do a little bit more practical things. That could be also a topic here. It might be about that I don't wish to be picking up dirty socks anymore. I want to meditate instead of cooking every single day. So it's kind of like a little bit of an escapism from the mundane responsibilities or the household chores overall. So it could be again about scheduling some downtime for ourselves, not worrying about responsibility like you usually do. It might be talking about just coming up with a little bit of time management. And I'm going to schedule a couple of hours when I don't know, sing in the bathroom or whatever it is. But it's also about asking others that they need to do their bits and bobs. They need to cook on Tuesdays. They have to do the washing on Fridays or whatever it is. It might be your work environment where you take on way too much responsibility, and then I need to learn to delegate. I need to learn to tell others that, listen, I'm fed up. I'm too tired. I do overtime and everyone goes on time. These type of things you might want to ask yourself a question about. Maybe it's also asking you, do you feel burnt out at work? Because then it might be time to change. Scorpio, might be happening in your 5th house. So how would life be like if you had a child? Or what would it be like to connect with your inner child? What would it be like if you actually showed the real, like yourself, without any type of fears? Are you trying to mask your intentions? Are you trying to kind of be a, you know, a little bit more accepted by others, and then you ignore your own uniqueness? But it's also about being creative. You have got the right to have joy in life. Okay, so it's about having fun. It's about yeah, if I want to dance, if I want to do this and that, then I can do that. It's about celebrating life without any type of fear. What are your hobbies? Can you turn one of your hobbies into a profession? Maybe that could be also something. What are the things which you hate doing? Get rid of them. You have got the right for romance. You have got the right to flirt. You have got the right to meet actually a partner who is going to satisfy your sexual needs. Are you in celibacy? Maybe. Sagittarius rising, going to be happening in your 4th house. So what if you could talk about, what if you could talk to your ancestry? What would you say to them? What would they say to you? What if you kind of released and broke the karma or break the karma in regards to ancestral pain? How can you do that? In what spiritual ways? Maybe it's about going for a family constellation therapy. How would your ideal home look like? And how gonna you do that? How are you gonna kind of cut back a little bit on the working hours and then spending a little bit more time at home? Are you overstretching yourself at work and then you feel burnt out and then your house is kind of running around because I don't take care of it anymore? Do you want to live somewhere else? Where would that be? You might want to live near the sea and ocean and you know, beach and whatever it is, because it's about creating some peace at home. Do you have plenty of arguments going on at home which needs fixing? Then let's sit together and then let's unite the family. It's about forgiving to the family members also. Forgiving to the parents that they might have wronged you and did something wrong to you. And probably you might want to be creating a little bit of a spiritual corner for yourself at home where you're going to be peaceful. Maybe all good, you just need a little bit of a single moment for yourself where you can meditate in peace. Maybe I'm going to ask my husband, can you take the children just for half an hour while I meditate so it can be very peaceful? Capricorn rising, it's going to be happening in your 3rd house. So this is about what would happen if you put the phone and social media down for a second. Would you be able to connect with yourself on a deeper level? Would you be able to actually talk to your friends in person rather than picking up the call and then calling them? What would life be like if you said out loud what you really think? What would happen if you kind of helped some people around you for a little bit of a spiritual awakening, being part in the local community, maybe being charitable in the local community? Do you think you would be praised for it and supported for it? It's about the right to speak about your spiritual experiences. It's about releasing the need to of any type of academic knowledge. Maybe you hate it and you want to do something else. Maybe you've been studying for a very long time about something and you don't even enjoy it. Are you an eternal student, or are you eventually going to become a master of a topic and start teaching others about it? Are you ready to put a course together? And what is the relationship like with your siblings and your neighbors and local community overall? And maybe we need a little bit of a uniting, basically. Aquarius rising, this is going to be happening in your 2nd house. So how would your financials look like if you released around the blockages in regards to money? What are your money blockages? How would you earn money if you had a choice? It could talk about starting to actually earn money from spiritual sources. It is very much about asking the universe to give you a little bit more because you can't sustain, and you kind of feel like I've got the right to have a little bit more money. It's about not apologizing for who you are. It's about actually organizing your spiritual materials. Do we need so much? Do I actually, am I a hoarder? And I need to cut back a little bit on that and then kind of organize them. That could be also important. It might be about just finding an effective spiritual practice that helps you to move forward, and it gives you confidence. It's about knowing that I'm worthy of having certain type of things. I am allowed to spend money on myself. I'm allowed to spend on things which I like. I'm just gonna balance this out. Maybe the way you earn money doesn't necessarily align with your values. Then can I change the ways how I earn money? These are some of the topics for you, Aquarius rising. And Pisces, last but not least, happening in your first house. So it's about embodying spirituality. It's about having the perfect body. Just don't do it. Don't go overboard. Because it could be like, yeah, I'm going to go to the plastic surgeon once a week. It's about how to achieve that ideal body, which I kind of wanted to. But again, be realistic about it. How do you portray yourself to others? Maybe I sometimes want to send people to hell, and then I have to stay, nice to them. Then I have to be actually portraying myself in a little bit different way as well. It's about, the rising sign is always about a decision-making point. So this is kind of talking about that you are going to be at a crossroad in many ways in your life. And it really depends in what ways you're going to make a choice. Can you actually listen to your intuition, or are you listening to others way too much? Because you might want to be impressing them. It's about learning to be egotistical a little bit. Just halfway there, it's about what choices do you have to make in life? Make the right choices. Do you consider other people's needs way too much, or do you do things according to your own, values in a certain sense? So learning to be selfish is extremely important for you, Pisces rising. So some of the patterns we spoke about, so I'm not going to go around those. Those are the dates when Jupiter was in Pisces and so forth. You might want to be looking at those. I said, looking at Saturn is extremely crucial because it's going to go into Pisces and it's going to test your faith. It's going to test what you have started. It's important. And then some of the planets. Just with keywords. If Sun gets triggered in your chart, it means you are a Pisces Sun. Then who am I? Who can I be a leader, or am I going to get lost in the crowd and everyone is going to sweep me away? Is my vitality strong enough? How am I going to make my vitality a lot stronger? Can I forgive my father? Can I forgive some of the authority figures around me? Do I have got anyone to look up to? What is my confidence level? Who do I want to become, and how I'm going to achieve that? As a husband, am I satisfied with my role? Can I become a father? Or it could talk about sometimes the release of a father figure also, but also how to heal the father and maybe finding some alternative ways. But also as a woman, am I actually happy with my husband, who I am with? Can I actually sit next to my husband very silently, and then we're still communicating. With the moon, it's very much highlighting your emotions and your personal relationships and what type of wife you are. So am I a controlling wife, or am I an understanding wife? How am I going to find a balance between those two? Do I want to become a mom or not? Do I want to get married or not? But also it asks you to look at your body, what you eat. Do you do a cleansing from time to time, or are you going to start putting on weight? Because it's very easy with Neptune and Jupiter on the moon to put on weight. Do you actually want to give birth? Do you want to purchase a home? Do you want to move to an ideal place? Can you forgive your mom for all the wrongdoing she did before? If it happens on your Mercury, then it's about, and it's a very interesting one, because Mercury, Jupiter and Neptune don't get along. So it's very much about understanding with logic that there are invisible powers out there. So it's increasing, or it wants you to understand things, not just from a logical perspective, but from a spiritual intake as well. What we see is not always the truth. So it's about the blind faith, really. And we need to understand that we might be a victim of that. It's about learning something new. It's about maybe how I connect with people, how I communicate with people, and maybe I'm not straightforward enough, or I'm too straightforward. It is also possible to relocate with this, or it's about opening a business. I want to do some shops, and I want to, I don't know, introduce the credit card reader or some type of technological advancements in my business. And I have wanted to do that for a very, very long time. Venus, it's about relationship, creating some harmony in your relationship, understanding your relationship patterns, looking at your attachment and detachment styles in your relationship. There are 4 types. I'm not going to explain those 4 types, but it's kind of like what I project onto my relationships and what I do kind of in a different way. Like an example that, for instance, let's say I was, my mom told me that I'm ugly, and my partner keeps cheating on me and telling me that I should be going to the gym, for instance, and I took it in the wrong way. So understanding some of your relationship patterns. The way how you look like. Do you like being in your own skin, or do you not like? What you spend money on? What do I hate doing? How do you feel like as a woman? It's about finding a girlfriend or finding love. So actually it could indicate falling in love with someone. Just making sure that we falling in love with the right person though. So allowing time to get to know them, allowing time to enjoy the process. It's about being a girlfriend and a boyfriend. We dating, we sleep together, and then we get engaged. There is kind of like a process which we should follow with this. Last but not, Mars, not last, but it's about actually, do I do what I really want to do? Do I have got the willpower to change my life, or I always kind of go with the flow? Maybe I want to start the gym and then I always find excuses not to. And Neptune is an element of an excuse really here. It's about in what ways you're going to defend yourself. Maybe it's about looking at your defense mechanism, but also it's about, do I need to defend myself from any type of spiritual invasion, which is Jupiter and Neptune. It might be that just people are taking advantage of me. So how am I going to stand up? Do I feel like a man? Or it actually could talk about, I want to have a lover, and then I want to find a man, I want to be finding a boyfriend. But you know what? From a psychological perspective, it's about dealing with your inner aggression. What are you angry about? And typically, you might be angry about the fact that you haven't achieved your dreams, what you wanted to. So how I'm going to pluck up my courage and actually achieve the dreams. If it happens on your Jupiter, well, then it means that you have got a Jupiter return, right? And it's about going for your opportunities. It's about finding the right people who are going to support you. But I'm also going to scratch their back too. It's about looking at if you have got faith, if you want to shine, if you know what the meaning to life is for you. So what is important to you? You're going to have to look at those things. Yes, it might be about sharing your knowledge with others. Yeah, in a negative way, it could talk about legal matters. It could talk about divorce as well, unfortunately. But Jupiter rulers, it could be actually good. I think if someone has got a Jupiter return, if you grab the opportunity, this could be real good. Saturn, last but not least, well, it's really about looking at your shadow sides, looking at your fears, looking at the world from a reality point of view as well, a real angle. It's about facing some challenges. It's about testing your faith, testing your confidence level in yourself. Sometimes it tells you that you're going to have to be patient. Things are going to work out the best way, but you're going to have to put a little bit more effort in it. Hard work brings you reward. Do you know that, or do you want to get the result very quickly? Jupiter, a little bit of a greedy side of that, right? It's about a business start as well. Are you dreaming about having your own business? Let's get that started. Let's make it real. Let's crystallize all these opportunities. Definitely. Some of the, what are the crosses I wear in my life? What is holding me back? Where is that fear originated from, rooted from? Let's expose those and let's get rid of them. What are your blockages? These are some of the topics with Saturn. So we are asking about part of fortune and true node, and then we're going to start, guys, asking about asteroids. True node, very much about finding your life mission, starting a completely new journey. Part of fortune, it really depends. I can't answer that. It depends on the sun and the moon position. So I cannot really talk that. And I'm not going to talk about Chiron and asteroids. So some of the remedies we want to be working about or thinking about. I also said that Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are generational planets. So I'm not too sure if they are the most important one, because that's going to be happening for plenty of people. So water filter, I wanted to say that I think it's going to be important. I think it's about paying attention to your intuition. It's about giving and receiving equally. It's about traveling if you want to. It's about putting down your colorful glasses and putting on a proper glass. And sometimes it's about actually physical way, put down your colorful glasses and put on a different one. Go and swim. Have some intellectual kind of mutual talks and receptions with others. Do you feel that someone is using you? Get rid of them. Use common sense. Don't get deluded or deceived by others. Collect information before you do anything else. Only help people when you are ready to. Otherwise, say no. Now, with Neptune, Jupiter, we need to learn to say no to things. You can launch creative projects. You can actually focus a little bit more on beauty somehow. Maybe you want to be flood-proof your house, okay? and you might want to be having a flood insurance. You might want to be filter your drinking water, or making sure that the water is somehow, you know, flushed through or whatever. Strengthen your universal divine energies. It's about cleansing the body from any type of emotional pain. Maybe it's about, there is a way, the spiritual way, about recharging the water, which is about boiling the water, talking to the water, filtering the water, and then I drink it before I go to bed and when I do some type of manifestation. So there's some water work we can actually do with that. We can work with sound frequencies. We can do, I don't know, listening to some type of chanting that I only eat cucumber, I lose weight, and all these type of things. Something which you want to get into your subconscious, but you should be doing that consistently for minimum 30 days before you see any type of results with that. Be open towards spiritual matters. Surrender if needed, and reveal your pain. Don't hold it in. Don't hold it in your body. These are some of, make your environment a little bit more beautiful. Have a couple of flowers, or, you know, whatever you want. Make some creative choices around your home so we can boost this Neptune Jupiter. Walk on a beach. Go down to, I don't know, you know, barefoot. I can be walking in the sand on the beach. Do that. Change your work schedule. How many hours you work? Okay. Don't overdo it. Put social media a little bit aside. Okay. I think there is going to be a little bit of a skepticism around it. So anyway, it's going to be blooming on one hand and it's going to be declining on the other hand. It's about finding meaning in the meaningless. There is a bad thing coming in. What is the good thing about that? Why did it happen? Looking at that. Set boundaries. You know, the saying no part, because it's very easy to lose touch with reality. So boundaries are very, very important. So guys, this is some of the remedies I kind of recommend with Neptune and Jupiter conjunction. So, any questions, because we got to the end of it? Well, I planned 3 hours, a little bit of an overtime. I originally only planned 90 minutes, but I wanted to speak about the planets and I wanted to speak about the houses separately. So any questions apart from specific chart questions around the materials, because I won't be talking about asteroids, Chiron now, and so forth. I think you guys have got plenty of information to work with. 6-week astrocartography I would do, or 8 weeks. I have to put together the ideas, but I'm planning to do that. Thank you very much. I'm very happy that you guys found it good. So any question around the material? Are we a little bit more clearer how to actually make this Neptune Jupiter intention good, and start doing that tonight? You know, once the moon, I mean the sun goes down, then do some intentions, but be very specific about it and only ask maybe 3 things. What are the top 3 what you want to be achieving in the upcoming 1 year, and be realistic about it. I will do the same. Thank you very much. Loads. So it's going to be, how long do we have to do the manifestation? Well, you know, I kind of recommend, you do it for minimum 21 days. So in the next 21 days, I would be doing this manifestation. And what's interesting about it is that kind of like Jupiter is still about 21 days in the sign of Pisces. How interesting, right? And psychology says that we should be doing a manifestation for 21 days. before actually it starts doing. So I would do something in the next 21 days every day around those 3 topics, what you want to be improving. Just being, you know, realistic about it, as I said. Thank you very much. When can we re-listen to the webinar? The webinar is going to be uploaded on Caramel. The webinar is going to be uploaded on my website. So where you logged in, there is going to be an option for you to view it also, especially if you signed up for the website. So you will be able to re-listen to it. Yes, 21 days of manifestation, 3 topics that we want to improve, probably prioritize those, you know, and maybe just have 1 big topic and 2 smaller ones, like money, work, and love. You know, it might be too big for the universe. So just ask, you know, let's say love, and then smaller things, you know, I want my, I don't know, little boy to do better at school. You know, ask something for others as well, because this is about giving and sharing. That could be actually very important with this manifestation. Because remember, Jupiter becomes greedy and selfish sometimes. So just ask for others too. Maybe your parents. Maybe actually ask something for your enemy as well, right? Yeah, ask something for them too. Great. Books. Check out some Frank Clifford's book, some of those, but Demetra Georgia has got some great books also. I also really like Glenn Perry's books, by the way, but those are very psychological, but I think they are amazing. Yeah, 1 big topic for yourself, maybe 2 for others. One of them can be your enemy, and the other one can be, you know, a loved one. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed, I almost said Christmas, Easter. Have a blessed Easter. Have a blessed Neptune-Jupiter conjunction. Let's bring the best out of it as a collective energy. And maybe we want to put something out there to the universe as well, so that it can heal a little bit. So thank you, and see you with the Jupiter in Aries webinar, which is also going to be free of charge for everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Just on you, Victor.
Oh, thank you very much. Bye, everyone.